Hello, everyone, and welcome to Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose, and it is Thursday, September 24th, 2020. We have an exciting show planned for today. Got a lot to get to. We're going to have a special guest on today. One of our comrades from our Patreon community will be joining us today for a discussion on some of the goings on there on the West Coast. And so I'm excited for that, really looking forward to that. So yeah, let's get to it. If you are just joining us, please do me a favor and just immediately hit the like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel already, and share this out on social media wherever you can. Really appreciate that. That just helps the channel to grow and helps us to, continue to exist here. So please help us out, support in that way. Thank you for your solidarity. Really appreciate that. So also, if, big shout out as always to our Patreon community. Just always want to start out by thanking our Patreon community for their support and their continued support. It's literally what keeps us going. So thank you so much to all of our Patreon patrons. If you aren't already and can afford to, please sign up for our Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/radicaldemocracy. You'll find links in the description box below. So please hit that link. If you're like me and you're too lazy to type that into your browser there, just hit that link in the description box and go over there, support the show. We need your support. We do not have the backing of, big money advertisers like the corporate media. So we need your support. That's the way that independent media functions, and it's the only way that it can exist. So we need your support. Patreon.com/radical democracy. If you would like to leave a one-time tip for us tonight, you hear something you like, you want to leave a comment that you want to make sure it gets read, or you just want to drop us a little bit of funding, please head over to coffee.com/radical democracy. That's ko-fi.com/radical democracy. And there you can drop us a one-time tip. You don't have to sign up for an account or anything like that. You can just drop us a one-time tip. It essentially replaces our super chat feature. So if you are familiar with the super chat feature on YouTube, on other channels, we are close to the point of being able to monetize the channel, hopefully, or at least nearing the threshold of when we'll at least be able to apply for that status. And so hopefully that is a feature that we'll be able to enable soon. So more on that. For more up-to-date information on that, you can always join our Discord server by signing up as a $5 or more Patreon patron, and you will be given a link, an invite link to our to our Discord server, where we have behind the scenes discussion, just chat. You can post news stories that you would like to see covered on the show, and we've already had we've already done one story recently recommended by one of our Discord members, and now tonight we're going to be covering another story recommended, suggested by a member of our Discord, which means a member of our Patreon community, and our guest for today. So please support us in that way, and maybe we can have you on the show. We would love to do that. So all right, thank you to everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. We got a lot to get to, so I'm just going to get to it. And once our guest joins us, we will bring them on. But for now, just going to get to a few stories off the top here. So first up was just something that's been in the news recently, just kind of a wild story, something that it's just emblematic of the end times that we're in. So, and sort of just a peak, capitalism at its worst, which is capitalism at its finest. And so let's take a look at this story, and then we will discuss here. This is a story out of Vice from Motherboard on Vice, and it says, gig economy company launches Uber, but for evicting people. A company called Civvl says evicting people is the, quote, fastest growing money-making gig due to COVID-19. Yes, you heard that right, folks. We have Uber for evictions. All right. So this is literally, this is from the story here. And it says, this is text pulled directly from the website. It says, Since COVID-19, many Americans fell behind in all aspects. Wow, that sounds really heartfelt and heartwarming. And the next thing you expect for them to be saying is, let's be fundraising to help those Americans that fell behind in all those aspects, right? Unfortunately, continuing from this article, the button below this statement is not for a GoFundMe or a petition for calling for rent relief. Instead, it is the following call to action from a company called Civvl. Be hired as eviction crew. During a time of great economic and general hardship, Civvl aims to be essentially Uber, but for evicting people. Seizing on a pandemic-driven nosedive in unemployment and huge uptick in number of people who can't pay their rent, Civvl aims to make it easy for landlords to hire process servers and eviction agents as gig workers. So I'll show you, just because it feels surreal. It just feels like, no, this can't be real. I'm sure if you're like me, you're looking at this and you're just like, no, this has to be an Onion article, something like that. I truly wish that this was an Onion article, but I went and checked it out, and yes, they have a website. This is absolutely real. Let's take a look here at their website, and you will see just how serious they are. So this is their website right here. This is their website right now, as of today, as of this live broadcast here. This is a Civvl website. You can see process services and property preservation. Property preservation, yeah. Civvl. Now, what we do: property inspection, evictions, foreclosure cleanout, process server, property preservation. Serve papers in all 50 states. Post notices on properties. Foreclosure cleanouts. Place items on the street. Eviction standby. Assist with standby extraction. Okay. So there you can see this line that they mentioned. Since COVID-19, many Americans fell behind in all aspects. And then right under there, that button, be hired as eviction crew. Fastest growing money-making gig due to COVID-19. Here's a quote here. It says, too many people stopped paying rent and mortgages thinking they would not be evicted. What? Yo, they're like bragging about this. And this is some of the things that you can do. Home cleanouts, be hired in your local city for much needed work, plenty of foreclosures and eviction properties to secure and clean out. They're like glorifying this stuff. Join our team. We are always looking for independent contractors. We'll get more on that later, to provide process serving, property preservation, and other services. So it also says, be a process server. Literally thousands of process servers are needed in the coming months due to courts being backed up in judgments that need to be served to defendants. All right. So, and then at the bottom here, you can see what they're like: make good money. Busy year for process servers, eviction crews, foreclosure cleanouts. Be part of this opportunity to earn a profitable income with Civvl. A profitable income. All right. Profitable income. So profit off of others' misery here. All right. That's their advertisement. You can work in all 50 states. So we're going to be evicting people in every state, folks. Civvl has branches in all 50 states and Canada. So you're not safe either, Canada. Don't worry. We're coming for you too. So there is no lack of work. There is no lack of work, except for all the unemployed people who's are being evicted right now. Yeah, they have a lack of work, but there will be no lack of work, apparently, for all the people that can go and kick those people out of their homes. Our clients. Oh, who are their clients? Oh, okay. Who will you be working for, you say? Their clients are banks, realtors, landlords, property managers, plaintiffs, courts, estates. Yay, all of our favorite institutions and folks in the world, y'all. Oh man. So this is real. This is real. This is where we're at right now. We are talking about Uber for evictions. We got the gig economy. They say that we are we have these these jobs that are so, you just can't. The gig economy is, they say it's not the proletariat, but the precariat, these precarious jobs that we're already working in the gig economy. It's precarious work, right? It's already like, uncertain. You're not an employee. You don't have employee rights. You're not, it's worse. It's less than, at will employment. You're not even considered an employee of this company. So no benefits, no health care for these people. So with no health care, no benefits, no pension, nothing like that, the new jobs that are coming in. So all these jobs, we've seen 60% of businesses that have closed under COVID-19 are closed permanently, right? So those jobs are just gone. We're seeing this is historic level of the rapid pace of business closures and unemployment is unlike anything that we've seen in the history of this country. We literally break the record every single week. We break the previous records of any past crises in U.S. economic history. They're celebrating that the numbers are like holding steady essentially. And the numbers have been holding steady for a few weeks now. They changed the methodology for calculating the weekly unemployment claims. They changed the way that they calculate it based on what they're calling the seasonal adjustment factor. They use the additive seasonal adjustment factor instead of the multiplicative seasonal adjustment factor, which all you need to know really is that means that the situation's still the same as it was before, but the numbers are about over 100,000 less people weekly that are being counted at this point. So that's just a difference in the way that they're calculating it as of September 2nd, though. That's not actually any change in the situation on the ground for people. So they're like celebrating these numbers, holding steady around what they're claiming to now be 800 and around 75,000, even though that is still higher than anything in history. And also it is still higher than anything in history, and it's staying steady. It's not declining at this point. And so that's the reality for people. That's the reality of employment right now. That's the situation that people are facing. And you got a company in here. Talk about disaster capitalism. This is the worst of capitalism right here. I mean, this is disgusting. You got people literally like bragging about profiting off of the misery of and pitting one working class person against another, right? Because that's what that does here, right? It's going to pit one working class person against another desperate working class person. I saw a video. I should have had that video ready. I saw a video that was just this. It was crushing. It was one brown person, this brown man, and he's crying while he's evicting this elderly woman from her house, in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of all this. And so, but he's saying, well, today it's her, next week it could be me. And so it's like, how do you reconcile that? So this is the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and this is what we're doing. This is what people are. This is considered a viable business in a capitalist society, is a business that completely preys on the misery of hurting working class people in their lowest moment and glorifies it. They talk about it like there's no sweat off their back. Listen, I used to work. I've worked in the tech industry. I'm a software engineer by profession. I've worked for a company that was a gig economy company. It's the idea of this gig economy. It's literally, I'm telling you, and I know, I mean, I was on the inside, folks, and I'll tell you, it is what they do is they skirt regulations. They call it, they come in and they disrupt an industry. They'll disrupt an industry. And that really means that you typically equates to, check out Airbnb, Uber. These people just come in and they skirt regulations. And by that, they shift the responsibility from the corporation and the company onto the individuals in these situations, the gig workers themselves. All of a sudden you're renting out your own space for Airbnb. You're using your own car for taxi services with Uber. And if you get into a car accident or anything like that, that's on you. That's your responsibility. You have to deal with the upkeep of the car. You have to deal with all the maintenance. And taxi medallions cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars in many places, in many cities. For a taxi medallion, for the licensing in order to run a taxi company, costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, there is other things to be said about that, but a lot of those that's in place so that those people are paying essentially into a system of where they can they're making sure that they are insured and that if anyone, before, when you used to take a taxi, you didn't know who, if your taxi driver didn't have background checks performed on them. There were women being assaulted and raped even, and that went away when they started to regulate the taxi industry. And then all of a sudden we had Uber come in, and the hotel industry is regulated, heavily regulated. And how many guests you can have in a place, ensuring that you can't discriminate against your guests. There are laws that protect the consumer from being discriminated against in the case of a hotel business, but there is no laws to protect the consumers when they're being discriminated against in the case of Airbnb homes, right? That's how they were able to skirt those regulations. There were clear evidence of people, like a Black person would try to get an apartment somewhere. They would say, sorry, I'm all full. And then they would have a white person, somebody with a white image on their profile, request moments later the same room, and they would be told, oh yeah, we have rooms available, whatever you need, we got you. So by being able to skirt these regulations, a company like this comes in, and let's be clear, this is something that should never have been in a sane society. You do not allow a profit motive into removing human beings from their homes. I'm sorry, but you cannot put a profit motive in there. If you do, then you are setting up a system that enables this. Like capitalism, it allows this. It says this is totally okay. This is totally okay. Now, the same capitalist system, it sees this as profitable. This is seen as profitable in a capitalist system. But something like preparing for a pandemic, properly planning for a pandemic, we stock underground in what they call the oil reserves of the US. They stock at tremendous cost to taxpayers. They stockpile barrels and barrels of oil, right, underground. And at one point during the pandemic, because nobody was driving anymore, because nobody can go anywhere during a pandemic, gas prices literally hit negative prices. They would pay you to not deliver the gasoline. So gas was less than worthless. Okay. It was like, listen, we will pay you to not deliver that shipment of gasoline to us. So it literally had a negative price. A barrel of oil had hit negative prices. And so during this pandemic, within the past year, within the past 6 months, oil prices have been at less than zero. At the same time, we had no stockpile of medical supplies, protective equipment, ventilators, anything like that. So capitalism has set it up that it's not profitable to stockpile medical supplies that would protect us in the case of a pandemic, and maybe could have prevented a lot more people from losing their jobs. No, that's not profitable. So we're not going to do that in a capitalist system. What we're going to do instead is allow companies like Civvl to pop out here and literally profit off of evicting people, working class people, from their homes in the middle of a global pandemic, while people are being told at the same time that they're being kicked out of their homes to shelter at home, shelter in place, shelter at home. So shelter at home, but we're going to kick you out. And for anybody that thinks that, like, oh, well, don't worry, there's eviction moratoriums. For one, since the start of eviction moratoriums, they've been big. The biggest landlords have been finding every loophole possible to skirt those regulations and to find loopholes in order to evict tenants. So evictions have still been ongoing throughout the entire pandemic. There have been clear cases of people being evicted. There was a case of one person who was literally in the hospital being treated for COVID, got out the hospital and was getting evicted. And so people have been evicted under this. But even after the eviction moratoriums expired recently, there was a surge in evictions. And then right after Donald Trump did his executive order saying that there would be, they would put another moratorium on evictions, because there was no actual infrastructure in place to stop that, and no actual, legislation there in place at that point in order to stop that. And banks were still scrambling to figure out how those rules were going to be executed. They ended up, there was another surge in evictions. And so we've had now, anytime they can get in there and they can kick people out of their homes, they're going to do it. And so even with these moratoriums, they're still finding ways, they're still finding loopholes in order to evict people from their homes. And here we have this app where people are literally, they're pitting one working class person against another, a desperate person that's just probably, most of these people, I mean, what are you going to do with this money? If you're doing this, if you're out there having to be forced to do this, because who feels good about doing this? I mean, you're either a monster and you feel good about doing this, like you're a monster and I don't want you to be able to have a job like this. You're a terrible human being if you enjoy this work. But for the vast majority of these people, it's going to be people that don't want to even do this work. It feel terrible doing this work. I mean, a guy was crying while he was evicting someone. And so, you know, there's people going to feel terrible doing it. And you are doing this to other, you know, you're probably doing it so that you can pay your own rent, right? You're desperate because you need to make your own rent. So in order to make your rent, you're out here, you know, destroying people's lives who couldn't make their own. So it's literally the same thing is pretty likely to, you know, much more likely to happen to that same kind of person that's doing these evictions, that's serving these evictions. And they talked about, you know, these people are, it's gig economy. So it's independent contractors, right? These people, this isn't even employment. These people aren't even being given jobs, aren't being given the protections of employment. And they're being forced out into this, you know, this gig economy work, these precarious jobs where you're doing terrible, evil, awful, you know, inhumane, immoral things to kick a person out of their home in the middle of a global pandemic, in the middle of a pandemic is immoral. That's inhumane. I mean, and for anyone on the right, I would question if you feel like this is okay. I think that there's a lot of religious folks on the right. Does this square with your religion? Does this square with your spirituality in that way? Like, is this what Jesus would do? So if you're on that side of like, well, you should have paid your bills on time, and it's like, no, what? You know, does anyone actually deserve this? And so this is just a terrible situation. And wanted to call some attention to this craziness. So. All right. Whoa. Wait, what? Hold on. Wait. So I'm just looking. I just took a second to look at my comments, and I believe there is someone in my comments right now called Civvl Agent that is in here trying to do propaganda in my motherfucking stream right now. Okay, they are out here doing propaganda. Am I crazy? Oh no, I'm pretty sure that's their logo right there. Check that out. But there is somebody from Civvl out here talking about, hello, ask us what the real story is. The real story, we see the real story. We don't need your side of the story, you monster. All right, we don't want your fucking side of the story. You're not welcome here, you fucking monsters. Okay, you are horrible human beings. Quit your job, okay? That's the only act of solidarity that you can show with other human beings, all right? Quit your job and, you know, protest at all costs, tear down everything to expose all information, expose all their private information, all their proprietary information, expose it and quit your damn job, because you are a horrible human being if you are working for this company. I am sorry. I don't like to reduce people to good or bad, but let me tell you, it's a pretty easy one if your job is to profit off of other people getting evicted from their homes. So please don't try to come up in my comments running your propaganda. Please, that is hilarious, y'all. That is hilarious. So this is nuts. All right, I've never seen anything, and they're talking shit about my nails. Is that what I'm seeing in these comments right now? Yo, do not disrespect. Okay, do not disrespect. Oh my lord. Okay, that's too funny. That's too funny. Yo, I can't believe this shit. Civvl Agent said, we're as professional as a dude with yellow fingernail polish. I'm sorry. So you know what? I'm happy to take this kind of bullshit, because like this must have been like just one little iota of what it was like. This is just like one minuscule fraction of what it must feel like to be a, woman in America at any time. It's like you're not professional because of your makeup, essentially. Get the hell out of here with that, you clown. All right. We'll be more, we don't need to be professional here. We need to be, we're more concerned about being humane. Okay. That's our concern here. I'm more concerned about being humane than professional. Okay. We can talk about professionalism. All right. I don't give a damn about professionalism when it comes at the expense of morality and humanity. Okay. What you're doing is inhumane. You're disgusting. It's disgusting. And you're out here running propaganda in the comments of some little lefty podcast. This is what you're spending your time doing. This is professional. I can't wait. I can't wait to clip this. This is hilarious, y'all. All right. So I don't want to get too lost because we got our guest to bring on here. Maybe we can laugh at this a little together. So I want to bring in our guest here soon. Let's. And any no, let me. I'll bring our guest on, and then we'll chat for a bit, and then we'll get into the next story. So give me 1 sec here. Let me just pull up. All right. So, all right. Our guest today is an American producer who goes by the name of Plasmon, who found leftism through atheism. He lived in Singapore for 3 years, but he is joining us today from Washington State, where wildfires continue to ravage the West Coast. Please, everyone, welcome Ian Frank Olson, aka Plasmon, aka Whatup America from the Radical Democracy Show community.
What's up, Kamali? Yo,
hey,
can you hear
up,
me?
Ian? Yep, I can hear you good. I can hear you great. I don't know if you see what's going on here, if you've been listening and watching what's going on here in our
I think
comments.
It's a troll. No, I think it's a troll. I think it's somebody with a fake account, man. There's no way that they have out here trying to screw your show for
like running propaganda, right? Like that's next level right there. That's some next levels. I've never seen anything like that. I've covered a lot in my short time. I feel like I've covered a lot of stories and never seen anything like this. So that's amazing right there. I didn't think that we would have propagandists in our chat tonight. I wasn't ready for that.
And if you take that kind of job, it's just like being a cop. It's like it really says something about who you are. Like there's a lot of jobs to take. You don't have to, there's no experience line that goes along with just evicting people. I mean, not really.
Exactly. It's like, what was your line of work? That it's like, oh, no. I was made for this work right here. Like I'm a trained, ruiner of lives right here. Like it's like, how do how does one prepare? How does one get into that line of work even? And so, it absolutely does say something about the person. If you're in that work, it's like it's an immoral job. And you know what, the rest of us, we're all experiencing. I'm unemployed right now. We're all experiencing unemployment. We're experiencing, we're experiencing mass unemployment in this country. I'm technically, I'm housing insecure. I luckily I stay with a friend who, is just a wonderful human being and always works with me on rent, things like that. And so, I just happen to be a lucky person, but so many Americans are either one step away, one missed, paycheck, one missed unemployment check, from homelessness and destitution in this country. And people are struggling. And so instead of being out there and having solidarity with these folks and saying, listen, I would rather be unemployed and be one of those folks than to sit there and attack those people that are just desperate Americans, desperate working class Americans. So that is really, I don't know how someone does it, but I guess that's the same kind of person that would be up in the comments of some small lefty,
I guess so. Yeah, somebody who just likes ruining other. Well, there's this thing about social vampires, right? People do this all the time. Even me, I think everybody has this to a degree where you just kind of go, you like take some catharsis out of going and just kind of laying all your problems on somebody else and like transferring them all this negative energy, like, oh, I just got in an accident and I just had a horrible, shitty day. And like, now you've taken this other person who is probably having a fine day and you've now had them like experience your shitty day vicariously through you, via your sort of, and I really try not to go and lay my stresses on other people, especially in such a stressful time right now. Everybody's like this close from the edge, because of all what's going on, all the pandemic, the political. I mean, I would just say, just try not to like get into yelling arguments with anybody, even if they are just like, no, even if you don't think that they'll get pissed off, like, who knows if that's when they're going to snap and just, go off in a violent way, Yeah. So,
it's unfortunate. People are at their breaking point at this, at this stage. And so it's a difficult time, and try to have an understanding of like, everybody is up against it. People are stuck between a rock and a hard place and that sort of thing. But I think you can absolutely, like you were saying, you don't have to be like a social vampire in the sense of, going to, your misery is okay. You might be unemployed, you might be struggling, but is the thing that you want to do, bringing that to the literal front doorstep of another working class person to, tear them out of their home and serve the like authoritarian state in evicting, or private corporations and evicting and removing people from their homes in the middle of a pandemic. It's just like, it's in the middle of a pandemic, and in any sane society, in France, they have a law in France that says that I could be generalizing. It might just be Paris, but I believe it's all of France, but it might just be Paris. I apologize if I get that incorrect, but there's a law, and it says that there's a certain stretch of months from like November, or it's like October 30, from like November 1st until like March 30. Oh, okay. Sorry, we cut out for a second there. Sorry about that. So there's a gap from November 1st until around March 30th. You're not allowed to evict anyone. And And what they did was they added a new law, put forth new legislation that said, all right, from this day right now, and it happened. They did it a couple of months ago. They said from this day up until October 31st,
90% of your wages, right?
Exactly, and you cannot evict anyone up until October 31st, which essentially had the effect of saying you cannot kick out anybody out of their homes until
right.
Out here, I think that this is on StreamYard. I apologize for the technical issues there. We're still.
But what I wanted to say was that it's not completely on just the renters. I mean, I hate supporting landlords, but it's kind of fucked for them too, right? They're getting fucked because people don't have jobs to pay their rent that they agreed to pay, right? And so they're getting screwed. And then, so the person who's ultimately at fault is the government. The government didn't do shit for anybody. And so now you have tons of people who are going to get evicted. And is that their fault that they had to stay at home? It's not their fault. This was the policy of the government. They said, stay at home. We're closing all the businesses. Sorry. And then now you're getting evicted because of the government's, I don't want to say the government made COVID or anything, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the government did they should have done a stronger shutdown, right? Yeah. Like all the other countries that did so much better with the virus. And now it's like people in this country don't even understand how horrible this virus is. It's like they are in complete denial. And it goes into the other thing I want to talk about, which is climate change, which is that everybody wants to be comfortably feel like it's so nice to just say, oh no, this isn't real. Oh, that's not, they're just wrong. They're just wrong about the fire in the house. I'm just going to stay here. In fact, I'm going to tuck myself into the bed covers, to avoid the fire that's in the kitchen, right? Because that'll help me, right? Closing my eyes to everything, not like standing up and taking action and like doing something about the fire. So this is exactly the same. This is the hugest problem that we have, is this denial or ignorance in this country, where people just feel like ignoring a problem is preferable to actually like addressing it. And that's my biggest gripe with the right wing, is that they don't want to address any problems. They want to say, oh, America is great. We're number one at everything. And if you criticize America, you're un-American, because there's no problems here. There's no actual real problem. And in fact, this is like a collapsing empire in so many different ways. And it's also becoming a dictatorship and I don't like to necessarily draw comparisons between Trump and Hitler and all that, but there are some uncanny similarities between how he came to power and the way he's ruling. And like his family was all German, and, he always is quoting about Germany. And like he said the other day, something about like, oh yeah, in Germany, the war or something like that. Like he knows German history really well. Like why? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they said that he had like the book like Mein Kampf. And, he had it by his like bedside table. So he's definitely no stranger to this. and I know that his dad, has like ties to shit, and so it's definitely it's not that far, and the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree there. So yeah, no, I absolutely, there's all the Cornel West says it, that he describes it as a neo-fascist administration, and I certainly won't pretend to be anywhere near as smart as Cornel West. So if he's saying it, I certainly listen to what he says, and I certainly take him as somebody who understands and has a strong
look, man, intelligence takes many forms. Intelligence takes many forms, right? I doubt Cornel West would be very good at like operating StreamYard. So everybody's good at their own shit. There's not. I don't like really.
We all gotta find out.
Like I'm smart or dumb. Like I really cannot. Like I had this like 5-hour argument with my friend about like because he was trying to tell me that like no, dumb people just exist, and I was just like, no, everybody has potential to be like good at something. Like raise themselves up and improve themselves to the point where they find self-actualization and stuff like that. Like everybody, I don't care if it's like the shittiest person in the world, they can change unless like they've completely screwed their chances by like I don't know, doing some horrible crime or something like that. But beyond that,
but even in that sense, I feel like there is like we have to be on the left. We have to have a mentality of having a path to redemption and acknowledging that there has to be a path to redemption for people, and it's something that I really try to keep close to the vest, and always try to just keep that in mind and on the forefront of my mind that we can't. I often have the take whenever the discussion of, and I don't want to get into it right now because it's too big and too broad of a topic of like cancel culture, just this idea, because it does exist on the left in some ways. It certainly has existed on the right for just as long, if not longer. And so, but we have to have this understanding of like a path to redemption for just about anyone. Otherwise, it's like, what are we saying? What are our other options? Do we then believe that we should be able to lock people up for the rest of their lives for any crime necessarily? I think there's justification for most people that if you can be rehabilitated, and in a lot of other countries, there's no such thing as like life sentences. I think there was that dude, that case of that like shooter in Norway or something, who in Oslo, who he went to a camp on that island and he shot up a bunch of people. It was the largest mass shooting in their country's history, and he wasn't given a life sentence. He wasn't given a death penalty.
And I'm like, that's kind of radical even for me. Like, I'm like, man, I might have walked through away the key with that guy. Like, he killed people. Like, I'm sorry. Like, at a certain point, like I'm sorry, you just screwed up too hard, and that describes about like 1% of all crimes. Like 1% of all crimes are like that heinous to where it's like so crazy that you have to like, that's what jail should be for. It's like for those 1% of crimes where it's just like everybody else feels.
I think we lost. Okay, sorry, you cut out for a second there, Anna. Sorry about that. Nope, you're back. I think you're back. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, you're saying that's essentially 1% of crimes essentially fit that mold in your opinion. Yeah.
Like where it's like public safety is seriously at risk with those people out. So like, keep them in a place, treat them ethically, but just keep them in there so that, we don't have to deal with their horribleness. But that's like most of the people who are in prison are there because they got caught doing something that was at the worst part of their life. Like
non-violent crimes. Most people that are locked up are for non-violent offenses.
They stole some shit. Like, who cares if you stole a bike?
Yeah, anything like crimes against property or crimes against your own body, like doing a drug, are I just don't think that those things should be considered crime, and we need to drastically reduce prison populations. And we'll get to the topic of, I think, the prison conversation when we talk about the story of wildfires, because I think it ties into the wildfire stories, particularly in the case of California. But so yeah, let's jump into it. Let's get into this story here. One of the reason that what sparked this, I think initially was that Ian reached out on and hit us, commented in the Discord server, and just sort of was kind of reporting in essentially from the West Coast, from where these, and for folks that don't know, I mean, you'd have to be hiding under a rock, I think, at this point, and we didn't really get a chance to cover the story here per se, so this is our chance to kind of talk about it more generally, of course, as well. But there have been wildfires that have been ravaging the West Coast. We've seen, everybody's seen the images at this point of the orange skies. It just looks like something out of the end times, just post-apocalyptic, something you'd see in like a Fallout, game or something like that.
It reminds me a lot of Fallout, and I love Fallout.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it was preparation for these moments for us, and so we can read that comment, but essentially you kicked off this discussion into sort of not just about the wildfires, but there's a sort of second story that has come out of the wildfires, which has, and the wildfires have been affecting the air quality, and the wildfires are burning. It's not just California, but it's all up and down the entire West Coast. All up and down the entire West Coast, all the way up to Canada, Oregon, Washington State, all of California has been faced with this issue. And this is, you shared an article that, linked through, it was from a couple years back. This has been a long-standing issue, and people have seen, the climate scientists have warned us for years now that these issues were only going to be exacerbated along the West Coast, and in California in particularly, they had done studies. And so there's now recently, with all these wildfires going on, there's been conspiracy theories, some hoaxes coming out, where folks have been saying that essentially there's been conspiracies, right-wing conspiracies, saying that the Antifa and Black Lives Matter and the left wing has been starting these fires, essentially. And so I want to just show a quick story here on that, and then we can come back and we can chat about it. And this is a story out of the Los Angeles Times, and it says, it's an opinion piece. It says the rumor mill in Oregon, titled "The Rumor Mill in Oregon Has Got the Wildfires Figured Out." It's all Antifa's fault, and you can see here in this image. This is a picture of what it looks like in Oregon here. This is in Oregon, and you can see them, the fire danger, warning here. And this is what it just looks like midday, orange skies. It just, looks like something out of Apocalypse. But it says, Alyssa Azar, an independent journalist who spent the summer covering protests and political clashes in Portland, changed her focus after unprecedented wildfires broke out in Western Oregon. She wanted to cover stories about how people pitched in to help one another in a time of crisis. Last week, she and two colleagues were near Molalla, a hamlet about 30 miles south of Portland. Fire authorities had just ordered the town evacuated, and Azar, along with journalists Justin Yao and Sergio Olmos, pulled over to take a picture of a fire danger meter, which was all the way in the red. That's the picture that we saw there earlier. I was crouched down in the grass, Azar, 29, told me Monday evening. I looked up from my phone, and before I knew it, there were three guys with guns. One was pointing at my face. One was pointing toward me. The other one had his gun down. Assault rifles. They were huge. The men began interrogating her, she said. Why are you here? Who are you? What are you doing? They asked me if I knew about looters and rioters. She was confused until she realized they were probably talking about rumors, all debunked, that left-wing radicals were setting fires around the state and then stealing people's possessions once they evacuated. Azar noticed a few other vehicles pull up, which I realized was backup for them. The encounter seemed to go on forever, Azar said, but probably only lasted a couple of minutes. They were so hostile that none of us could get a proper video, she said. We worried if we pointed cameras at them, the wrong thing could happen. The men, who never identified themselves, ended the encounter brusquely. Get the fuck out of our town. So, I mean, the right-wing conspiracy has reached all the way to the point of literally people having their lives threatened, being held up at gunpoint. And so I wondered if you essentially brought this story to our attention. I wondered if you could talk about from your perspective and your experience there, what has it been like? What is the air quality like today? What's going on today? And also, how do you feel about these rumors?
Okay, well, the air quality has gotten completely better here in Washington. And I was actually, I was looking at those pictures from Oregon and California, and I was just like, completely astounded, because what we had here was like in the neighborhood of 250 AQI, which is like how much particulate matter, and that's already extreme. That's already in the extreme level. But in Oregon and California, they were getting levels of like 500, 600, which is off of the chart that we previously used. So this is like, these fires are actually so big that we've never in our history of recording it seen fires this big ever. That's why it makes so much sense to sort of like give some responsibility of the fires to climate change. Now, I will say we shouldn't jump to saying that climate change caused the fires, because these Republicans, they love to go off of words, like the meaning of words. They like to basically take one meaning of a word and use it for every meaning of that word. And like for instance, homophobia. Like they'll be like, I'm not afraid of gay people, or like, you know, a trans woman. It's like, no, they're a man. It's like that, and they're conflating gender and birth sex and all this kind of stuff. And like, you know, so they take words literally and try to use that and do a gotcha, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. You know, so it really was not climate change that started the fires, right? That's what they're all saying. It's like, climate change didn't start the fire. You know, it's just like, probably not. Like, you're right. Like, it was probably a lightning bolt, or like some kind of like, you know, there were actual cases of actual arson that happened. But these people were just crazy people. The police found these people. They were lighting fire. They were probably, what they were doing was they were camping and they were making a fire during a burn ban. That's how these fires get started, by irresponsible people, not freaking like, or even maybe some crazy people who do arson out of some kind of really messed up psychological thing that they have going on. But there has been no evidence of any sort of Antifa or any sort. And I was going to correct you earlier. I was going to say that there were a lot of conspiracies coming from the left wing, accusing white supremacists, of starting the fires. And so, but did any left wingers take any action, like going out and pointing guns at people? No, they didn't do that. They didn't take it from just calling people or just doing the things that you normally do during a fire, where your mind goes crazy and your logic goes out the window because you can't breathe. And it starts, for me, I have asthma. And so like, it starts to like give you kind of like a low level panic attack all of the time. Like, because you're constantly, there's nowhere to go where the smoke doesn't exist. And so there's no relief from it. You don't get to like, you know, exit it. And it's just constant. So like, you know, I was just begging for like it to stop, you know, it just went on for days and days and days and days. And eventually I just like, was like, screw it. I'm going to, you know, just stop thinking about it or whatever, you know, but it was incredibly painful. And I actually had to move from Seattle to Spokane during the fires. And because this is the day that I had scheduled everything to move. And so like, I had to travel across Washington twice, because my car broke down immediately when I was trying to move. So I had to do this whole crazy ass move. So I drove through the fires twice across Washington, and it was just like being in a gas chamber. Like, it was like being in a gas chamber.
So were you forced to move because of the fires, or you just happened to have a move planned already okay.
Washington didn't have any like big populous areas burn. Oregon had a big populous area burn. And you know, like the fires in Washington weren't really comparable to the ones that were in Oregon and stuff like that. But the smoke
I didn't know if the air quality was because I saw some reports of people from, I think it was Oregon, moving, you know, even further north to get away from, because the air quality had just gotten so bad that people were saying that they were, you know, asthmatic and, you know, struggling to breathe just in their home with all the doors locked and the windows, you know, shut, but still struggling to breathe through that.
I couldn't imagine what it would be like, because I was suffering so much and it was way lower than out there. That was my point, is that like I was having a really hard time breathing and I was having panic attacks, even though it was half the amount that they were experiencing out there in Cali and stuff like that. So anyways, I was going to point out that the big thing that the Republicans are saying right now about the sort of their angle is they're saying we need more forest management. Right. And this is actually something we need. The Native American people did controlled burns during the wintertime when it's not going to set a huge fire, when it's going to set a little fire. You do controlled burns in certain areas, and you just do that every year, and it works. And environmentalists have always been behind that. Well, most environmentalists, I should say. There's a lot of divisions within the environmental movement, and some good and some bad. I would definitely agree with that. And so, like, the Republicans trying to place blame on environmentalists for stopping, because they say, oh, environmentalists wanted to protect habitats. They wanted to protect things like this. So they said, oh no, let's stop all burning of trees. And this, maybe that's, I don't know what they're referencing there. Maybe something that happened in the 70s and 80s. I don't know. But it wasn't environmentalists that the main idea that I've gotten is that controlled burns are good. Doing forest management is good. Clear cutting the forest is not good for the environment, because you're going to increase climate change that way, right? You can't, and that's what the Republicans really, okay, this is where it gets into like my opinion, right? Like, I don't know this. I'm just saying this is my hunch from basically my vibe from being an environmentalist for many, many years and like picking this up. I think what they mean is that they want to allow logging and clear cutting to just be completely unregulated again, and just have it to where they can clear cut tons and tons of land and make it into farmland, right? And then destroy the water ecosystem, everything like that, right? Because of a profit, of capitalism, right? It's great. Farmland is very in demand. And this ties into another thing about that movie that came out a while ago. What was it called? Planet of the Humans, right?
Yeah, by Michael Moore.
Michael Moore. And he got all these other environmentalists came out against the movie because it was critical of some of the ways that environmentalists have proposed that we fix the problems, and was like, we need to think bigger than windmills and shit, right? That was kind of the idea that I got. But come to find out, these people who were criticizing that were majorly tied into the pulp and paper industry. So Lee Camp did an amazing expose on this one. And he basically showed that the pulp and paper industry has a vested interest in these sort of like greenwashing companies, because they want to continue clear cutting and using paper and all this sort of stuff. And which will, if any of your old fans are here, that links in a lot to the marijuana or hemp industry, right? So you've got the hemp industry, you can recycle hemp paper like 6 or 10 times when you can only recycle paper one time, so tree paper. So it's like, it would blow paper industry out of the water if they would make it federally legal here, right? That's the unseen thing, that like marijuana legalization has nothing to do with, in the beginning. Now I think it has a lot of racist things, but I think that the original reason why they made it illegal was to protect the paper industry, because they understood that it was such a better, they make ropes out of it and they're amazingly strong, right? I mean, I don't think you can make paper ropes, right?
Yeah. No,
anyways,
and I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that about the recycling of hemp paper. That's awesome. I wasn't aware of that it could be recycled.
And you can make plastic out of it. And so the oil industry is all against hemp coming out and that sort of thing. And now I think that the government, the Republicans, they see marijuana as a way to keep Black people in jail, really, And so I think that was the later addition to why marijuana is illegal in most states too. And so
kill two birds with one stone, essentially. Yeah, serves their political purposes ultimately. Yeah, I totally see that as a strategy for that's the type of strategies that they employ, and so that doesn't surprise me at all.
And I have proof of this. I have proof of this in that there's this article in The Intercept where it says in 2018 there was a guy named Ryan Zinke, who's a Republican, who said specifically. So the article says where he held environmentalists partly responsible for the fires because of a stance some have taken against logging. So Ryan Zinke described it as forest management and called for an increase in timber harvesting, adding that this would also be a boon for the economy. And so that says it all right there. He's saying, look, we need to just increase logging and get rid of all the trees. And so then voila, no more forest fires, no more forests, no more forest fires. And it would increase the economy, the capitalist economy, which everybody loves so well here. on this
Yeah,
channel.
yeah. You know, and this article it shows that this is a long standing goal of the, not, corporate America to many large extents, but also, the powers that be, but also the Republican Party as well, in the rush to try to sell off our public lands to private corporate interest, and putting a lot of the laws, the regulations that they put in around that I've read in through this article. They talked about how they used to have more natural fires that would burn, but unfortunately, because they started to put in these regulations that said that you couldn't burn those natural, those fire sort of like controlled fires, since they banned the ability for people to do the controlled fires, then it actually created a situation where, exactly, because they wanted they needed to do it for logging, but then that backfires essentially for the rest of us, where it then allows more, because they're not doing the controlled burns, more of the underbrush grows up, it dries out in the droughts, and now you have a ton of dry underbrush not being managed. This is where Donald Trump had come in and said oh, we just need more people clearing the brush, when the reality and what's worked naturally for centuries has been these natural fires that were essentially like what the controlled fires were meant to sort of replace that activity and to supplement that activity. And by not allowing the controlled burns, this is how it ends up being actually creating the atmosphere and the environment for greater fire damage to happen. And this was, and climate scientists have been warning about this for years now. There's an article also out of The Guardian that, linked through this article that you shared with us, that said, it was titled "The Era of Mega Fires: The Crisis Facing California and What Will Happen Next." And, this was in 2018. And these three climate scientists laid out the case that because of the lack, because of these corporate, lobbying, the corporate lobbying for regulations against the control burns, it ended up creating the conditions for these sort of massive, what they're calling mega fires. And like you mentioned earlier, I mean, these fires are burning hotter than anything ever recorded in history, and creating worser air quality than we've ever recorded in recorded history. And so it just shows that this isn't something that was new to these folks. It's something totally avoidable and something that climate scientists have warned about, but it seems like we just don't heed the warnings. And, and the people that do heed them and the people that are listening, we just unfortunately haven't been able to actually get into any real power. And I mean, this is, mind you, this is happening. This is the West Coast. These are Democratic, largely Democratic governors, but they still end up working in with corporate interests in order to create the atmosphere for this to happen and create the conditions for this to happen. So it's not just the Republicans. Democrats are also, the Republicans have had a longstanding goal to privatize our public lands and to destroy our planet. But there's a certain complicity from the Democratic Party as well, from Democrats as well in doing this. And they don't go far. How do you feel? So talking about that, how do you feel about some of the proposed policy solutions or the proposed solutions for the climate crisis? Where do you think, what direction do you think that we need to be heading in? What kind of measures do you think that we need to be taking right now in order to combat this crisis?
Oh man, I love that question. I have so many thoughts about it, but you might not expect what I'm going to say about it, because I mean, I've had honestly sort of like a big sort of thinking of how I feel and think about the environment. And I mean, like, I'm very critical of everybody. And I think that the most strength that you can have in politics is to self-examine, right? To understand how you fucked up, because everybody fucks up like more than they succeed. We all screw up really hard and go on these tangents and live by these things that are absolutely bad. I mean, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but but I will say like and so we need to be criticized and we need to accept it. Like the thing I hated most about 2016 was how Bernie Sanders supporters were blamed for everything, and Russia and all this other stuff, anything except for taking personal responsibility for a single dang thing, right? And so this is what I think about the environmentalist movement, is that we have got to get our asses in gear. This is so much more serious, and there have been so many people who screwed up the messaging, and the marketing is horrible on it. And I have lots of criticisms of not the ones that the Republicans are launching about the environmentalists causing the forest fires or whatever. I'm talking about like just messaging and figuring out like strong solutions. And I honestly don't know what the best solution is, but I have a feeling in my gut that we screwed the environment already a lot, way too much, that where we're going to be able to fix it by stopping with fuel, which is not going to happen either. That is not going to happen. No way in hell does that happen. I'm sorry. Not even if we switch to social democracy tomorrow, would we have everybody just stop driving their cars, because they can't. They can't do that. We haven't made our society functional in a way that doesn't involve these things. Like just look at the yellow vest movement in France. France, one of the most progressive places ever. And I love the people. They have so much fight in them, right? But what was that protest originally about? It was about a tax that Macron put on gas. Yeah. And it screwed all the workers, because they're trying to get to work. They have to pay out the ass to get, and it's like not them who should take the pay for it. It should be the fuel companies. But by that same token, we are all driving. So it's kind of like on the fuel companies and all of us equally too. Like we always like to put all of the blame and the onus on these companies that sold the oil. But if that company had gone out of business, another one would have risen up right in its place. Like the industry would have existed, and they probably would have been just as shiesty, if not shiestier. And so this is a problem that's like, it's not going to be solved just by eliminating people, right? Like we have to figure out how we can get those same companies to change and stop doing fuel. Or I really don't know how to stop it. But I think that the more important thing that the climate movement, the Green New Deal, all that sort of stuff should be focused on infrastructure. Stop focusing so much on, because Republicans and the mass of people really kind of hate hearing about CO2 emissions and stuff. It's really hard to conceptualize CO2 emissions and how that really, and how can you know if someone's really right about what they're saying? Like, I understand being skeptical about the climate science, right? Because it's really like the scientists, they really don't know everything. They have great ideas about stuff that are really well founded, and you can base other research off of them and find out and take tests and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like it's like the brain. Like we have a lot figured out about the brain. We can do a lot about it. We can do surgery on it, but we have no fucking idea how that works, right? The best neuroscientists in the world have no idea how the thing works. And the same thing is true about the planet. Like we have a lot of great ideas and a lot of data and a lot of metrics and the charts that we come up with, the predictions look horrible, right? They look horrible. So that's what climate scientists are screaming about, and they're justified in doing so. But we have to think about like the climate of the earth changes so much that it could wipe out human civilization on its own. We're just accelerating that process. The environment was already going to do this in a few hundred years. The ice age, we're coasting off of the air conditioning from the ice age, and it's just going to become like a wet, small land earth, and eventually, not very much uncovered land, Yeah. Anyways, I'm going on a huge tangent.
No. So when you say infrastructure, are you talking about infrastructure for green energies, or just literally about building like the Green New Deal, focusing on?
I'm talking about like building housing, building roads that are way above the level, right? Gotcha. Like we need to be focused. The biggest focus should be on making sure people have a safe place to live once this really goes haywire. Like concrete houses that are locked in, right? Like there was this guy in Florida that during the hurricanes, this entire beach was wiped, just completely cleared all the houses, every house on the beach, and his house was still standing there.
I remember that image. Yeah. I remember that image. Yeah.
We need to get this guy in charge of the Green New Deal, like he needs to tell us how he did that and hook everybody else up. Like let's all stilt up our houses, right? And let's rip out the engines of all of our cars and put in batteries somehow. Like, let's figure out how to do that. Like, we're smart. Like, we should be smart. We're humans. Like, we've come up with so much crazy stuff that's super, like, imagine a spaceship, how much shit that goes into making that, and like how much intelligence, and like we went to the moon, and we have satellites, and we have, like, it's amazing the level of human intelligence, but then the stupidity that we all collectively show, like everybody, all the simps. And I am a simp. I am a simp that's like only slightly like opened the curtains a little bit, you know? I really don't know that much shit. I mean, I was going to say earlier, like, don't take me too seriously on all this climate or anything, like, really, because I don't really know that much shit about the environment or politics or the economy. Like, most of the shit I get from like listening to, like, you know, Richard Wolff, my hero, right?
I think that's how, but that's like you're getting an education. And I think that is just the way that we're educated now has shifted from a sort of, I forget what the word for it is when you're, it's more autodidactical, where people are learning on their own. You can sort of go on and you can go on to YouTube and you can actually learn a craft. You can hear from professional chefs how to, who have degrees in culinary arts, and you can sit there and you can spend more time with them than a student in their classrooms would. And so I do believe that this is the way that we're absorbing new information. People used to listen to the mainstream media and you were informed enough. You read the people that were considered the smart folks and the well-informed people, where they read the New York Times and they read the daily paper and they read their local paper, and they watched the mainstream, used mainstream media outlets and gathered information from there. I think that we're just gathering it from different sources now, but I don't think it makes it our understanding of these things any less credible, particularly. And I think that, so I do believe that we have, for sure, we don't know absolute solutions. Nobody has a guaranteed 100% we know it's going to work solution, but I think that we can defer to the experts, respect expertise in some way. There are people that we say, hey, you spend your whole life researching this, spending your life's work investigating this one specific area of science, then we should certainly listen into those folks, and we hope to have some actual, some climate scientists on the show to discuss these topics as well. But we certainly need to listen to those folks. But I think that a lot of us are listening, and that's where we're sort of, even if it's secondhand knowledge, I think that we're getting a secondhand knowledge from the climate scientists, from what is known as just accepted fact at this point. Over 98% of climate scientists agree that this is definitely, it is being accelerated by human beings. Climate change is being accelerated by human beings, and climate scientists from all around the world got together in that IPCC report and said we have, that was in 2017. They said, listen, you got 12 years to stave off this crisis, or we're already past the point, and we're 3 years into that 12-year period already. And so I think
every year there's articles that come out that say
it's worse.
We actually didn't really realize how bad it was. Like, I read today, they're almost certain that the water will rise within the next 50 years to over 3 meters.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And you got folks like Ben Shapiro out there telling people, well, what do you do when your house ends up, underwater because the sea level rises?
Well, you just sell it to somebody.
You just sell it. You just sell it. It's like, who the fuck is gonna buy a house underwater, Ben? Who's gonna buy a house underwater, buddy? So that's their genius plan for some of these the people that they consider he's like the cool kid philosopher, was that New York Times piece covering him in that flowery stuff.
No, I think he's a secret lefty, man. I think he was he was just saying the government should pay everybody for their house if they have climate change. I would support that.
Speaking of secret lefties, I hope to chat about in this stream at some point. I want to hopefully get to the story today about Tim Pool. I saw some news break about Tim Pool, and he's another one that Okay, yeah. So hopefully I'll have some time to cover that story in this episode today. But he's another one of these sort of Dave Rubin-esque figures who wants to like pretend to be a lefty, but he pretends to be this like born again leftist, sort of Candace Owens style. Like, oh, I was a leftist and now, but I'm a lefty, but I hang out with all white nationalists and I parrot right wing talking points but I'm a lefty. I swear, I'm a classic liberal type, So he's one of those.
I picked up the grifter vibe off of him in like 2 seconds. That's why I don't know anything about him, because the first time I watched him, I was like, I see right through you, dude.
Exactly. The grift is just like wafting off of him, and it's just like, same thing. Like I don't pay attention to Tim Pool because I only hear about him secondhand through other folks that I follow, like Rational National or Progressive Voice might cover him, or some folks will cover him, and I'll hear him discussed in leftist spaces because people get pissed when he's like masquerading as a leftist when he's clearly not.
Oh, I get so pissed because he has a huge following that basically dwarfs the rest of the left-wing media. So he's doing all of the speaking on our behalf when he doesn't believe anything that we believe. Like he doesn't even know shit. He's an idiot.
Yeah, his videos get like 1 million views per. It's insane. He's got a bigger platform than any leftist that I know who's been doing this for a long time. And that's like AstroTurf support there. They do all kinds of things to prop that up. There are moneyed interests into having a person like that, a quote unquote useful idiot. But he's not even a useful idiot. He's just a straight up grifter. This dude is just 100% pure grift. He sees a lane, he sees profit in that lane, and he's willing to exploit that weakness there. And so one more question before you go. Like, do you support a Green New Deal? Do you think that is a measure that we need? Is that the fight that we need to be fighting? Do we have to be focused more on local fights, or is it something much bigger, something on the national scale that has to be done at this point? And is the Green New Deal the path forward, do you think?
No, I think it's exactly what we need. And that's what I'm saying, is that we need to just take it and focus, just kind of like refocus it a little bit more. I think this would be politically expedient too, to focus a little bit more on rebuilding infrastructure, because everybody knows in this country our infrastructure is crumbling. Like you can see it all around us. Like the roads suck, and all this stuff. And we need to just kind of like, I would say, just cool it a little bit on the like emissions aspect of it.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we just need to and that's super important, right? We need to take care of that. We need to reconfigure how we make energy and all this kind of stuff. But those, I think, even though we're going to miss the deadline, I think that those should be a little bit more like long-term ideas of the Green New Deal. And the immediate thing should be making sure that people are as protected as possible from the horrible climate disasters that are going on already, right? Take the money. If we have money, we should first stop the fire, right? For most people, right? Make sure they're safe. And then we can sort of rebuild or redo how we do things so that this kind of thing doesn't happen as much in the future, right? Maybe we can get away with that. But I think that right now, the Green New Deal is way too, like all the rhetoric throughout AOC, Bernie Sanders, even that guy who just Ed Markey, is way too focused on just the CO2 emissions, when that is like a tiny part of the climate chaos, or what is the word? Crisis. Yeah, the crisis involves plastic, air pollution, nuclear pollution, water pollution, ground pollution, like all these like forest, like, I mean, it's just like it's, if you get into it really and understand how many ways in which we're destroying our environment and our ecosystem, and how little responsibility any of us in the whole world are taking it. And this goes on all of us, not the government, not just the government, every individual person. We have to say, we screwed up. We need to go to the altar and be like, we have sinned, right? We threw away plastic. I do that. I did this today. I threw away tons of plastic into my trash can. All these wrappers of shit that I ate, and I just am doing mental gymnastics, like cognitive dissonance, because on the one hand, I believe like we need to stop this trash and all this kind of stuff, but the other hand, I'm like, what else am I going to do? You know, like this is the society that I have to drink. I mean, I don't have the money to go out and go no plastic. That's hard to do.
Absolutely. Because I've lived in a place where I've lived in rural Jamaica. I spent a few years of my high school experience were spent in rural Jamaica. Wow. And my family's Rastafarian. My father's a farmer. My brothers are farmers. We grew cannabis and we grew food. And, as Rastafarians, they don't eat meat. So it's essentially a vegan diet, and you're eating, you live off of your land. You plant your food. I've drank coconuts off of trees that I planted as a child and picked the first coconut off of that tree. I've grown, corn, potatoes, papaya, mango, just, anything whatever you're eating, yams, cassava, you grow all your food, everything that goes into your pot, essentially, exactly where it came from, the spot on the earth that it was planted, exactly what was put into it. It's all natural, that you're not putting any kind of like fertilizers or anything like that, because the soil is very fertile there. And so you're breathing cleaner air. Our water comes from rainwater or a natural spring. You create almost no waste. I saw, firsthand how you can live in a way where we generate. My father, they talk about people's carbon footprints. My father has, without a doubt, he has a, whatever you would call it, negative carbon footprint, whatever. Yeah, I think negative carbon footprint. Awesome. He has certainly, from all the trees that he has planted, and he does not create waste. He doesn't use anything that's wrapped in plastics, really. Very rarely. You only go to the market to grab things like rice sometimes, but even some of those things they'll sell them in like paper bags, and then we use the paper bags and like to start like wood fires. We'll like use that to catch our like wood fire up, and we cook on like a wood fire. And so it's a very natural way to live, and you don't create the waste. And so I personally, I am trying to look into and I definitely support local sustainability measures. I think that if we had more local sustainability, if people were planting their own foods, we had community gardens, things like that. I think that is the only way that we get to the point. We have to support local produce and things like that, because then you don't have the need to, package these things into plastics, to preserve them with unhealthy preservatives, to ship them across the country or across the planet, on planes and trucks burning fossil fuels. So if we really want to talk about measures that we can take, as individuals, I think it's supporting local sustainability efforts in order to try to, and consider that there may have to be some lifestyle changes. I'm not like a Luddite or somebody that thinks we need to roll back like technological advancements like that or anything like that. Like I want to get towards the luxury space communism, whatever they say, where it's just like we can have like fully automated luxury communism. Yeah. Like we can definitely get towards that thing and that ideal or whatever. Absolutely. But we have to do it in ways that are, we're thinking about sustainability. I think also with local sustainability, then you don't have the situation happen where, because if you're totally sustainable locally, anytime, if any kind of like, right now, if we have any sort of like climate catastrophe that happens, we have certain centers of our like financial system and different systems where that everything is, all that we produce in this country is being produced in one area, like oranges and citrus in Florida. It's like if something happens to that area, we're gonna, the citrus around the entire country, or in California, if something happens there, and right now, they're experiencing different climate disasters, it impacts people's, citrus, the availability of citrus for the entire country. And instead, if we had like local sustainability, I think that creates a situation where if one area is impacted, it's fine. We can move people to another area, and we already have all the systems in place where it's like, no, we're growing our own foods. We're using, greenhouses, whatever we have to do in colder climates, and trying to, we can always try to have specialization and things like that. But I do think that local sustainability efforts is one of the things that I really recommend in that light for folks that are looking for somewhere to try to, make an impact and try to impact it on an individual level. Because I've seen people try to do like zero waste and things like that. But I honestly think you have to be kind of financially privileged a lot of the time to do a lot of those things, and you just people can't afford it.
Our society doesn't even allow for that. And the way our economy works with this capitalism, it encourages you not to move away from that, right? It encourages you to buy, like use single-use stuff all the time, like because it's way easier for you. You have to go out of your way significantly in our society. Like when they were bitching at AOC because she took an airplane, right? And it's like, dude, how is she supposed to get there? Walk? Like, what do you want her to do? Or like when Bernie Sanders were like having 3 houses or shit. It's just like, dude, like the society that we live in, like maybe if we had a social democracy and places were just nice enough outside because, worker co-ops run everything and they basically like make the entire society way nicer and less, standoffish to everybody. Like, not these gray buildings where you have to like walk in the secure door and shit like that. Like there's just going to be these open community halls where there's businesses and shit taking place. And it's like, if we had that, Bernie Sanders probably wouldn't want a cabin or whatever, even though these are just things. He's an old man who's made a lot of money in his life. Like, not a lot, but like enough to have a cabin. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, and this is the society. Or like his jacket, like they were like, oh, he got a $500 jacket, and it's like, dude, his jacket was a gift. It was a gift from his like,
family, it was gifted like
that. And so like, they're always trying to do that.
Yeah, I think it's Peter Coffin who has he says like just a different sort of framing of the famous quote of like, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. He has just reframed it a little bit to say there's no ethical consumables under capitalism, to really put all the onus on the producers of capitalism and the capitalists in capitalism, and so there's really no ethical consumables under capitalism. It's no matter what you're using, is typically going to be because it exists within this capitalist system. It finds ways to help prop up the system, and so it's not. Oftentimes I find that there are things that we can take an individual responsibility. The individual responsibility and accountability has to come from the measure of like making the change and bring about the systemic change that we need in order to support ourselves like as a society, because one individual isn't going to be able to say end their plastic use, because they're, especially if you're a poor individual, it's like you're going to have to, you're going to eat from like fast food restaurants that are going to give you like plastic containers and things like that. If you're poor, you're going to buy things that are preserved and in plastics that can keep longer, and frozen foods and things like that. And so I think that we have to fight for sort of systemic bring about systemic change, so that people have the capability and have the tools in order to be able to support themselves without doing it in a dangerous way to the planet, without harming the planet.
Yeah, we need to have the government step in, regulate really hard, and not just regulate, not just with the stick, but also the carrot. You got to incentivize these companies in some way to change, to make it so that they figure out a different way to do it, so we're sustainable. Like, I had this idea with Amazon, just have a deposit on each box that you get $1 if you send your box back to Amazon to where they can collect all of the cardboard and make new boxes and stuff like that, or plant a tree for every single box that you cut, or something like that. So we have to, but the government has to come in and subsidize that, not subsidize hamburgers and fossil fuels. They subsidize the things that are harming our society, not and like, that's what the Green New Deal should also focus on, is like changing the legislation and the things that we subsidize here to be more to like, they could easily make rules that these companies, these amazing, brilliant private companies, they can figure it out now. They're on, the onus is on them. Oh, you're the best. Capitalism is the best. Well, then prove it. Prove that capitalism is the best by living legally under these regulations that we set, not you. These businesses are always setting their own regulations, which is why our society never changes in the right direction, and why we need to have a new party and all this kind of stuff, because both of these parties, they screw us around like this. They both screw us around horribly, and there's never going to be an end to it unless we have systemic change. Like there's just never going to be an end, and we're going to have some level of authoritarianism in this country to make that happen. Authoritarianism, not towards the people, towards companies. They've been living scot-free forever, right? They need some authoritarianism. They have anarchy right now. They can do whatever the hell they want, right? With very, very little regulation, and the regulation that exists is flimsy and not followed, and like, you know, and most people can understand this. The people who are anti-regulation are just complete vampires. Like they're just complete, like you know, like Jordan.
Yeah, the anarcho-capitalists, of the world. Like, you know, businesses should have all the freedom to exploit people and workers in any way they see fit is essentially their ideology, which is just it's deranged, if you ask me. Anything that's I mean, the system is called capitalism. But they somehow do it, and they, you know, they make a good buck off of it, so they'll keep espousing that sort of garbage. So let's check in. I'm gonna check in with Tammy here. Do we have any comments that we want to get to, especially if we got any questions here for Ian while he's still on with us? But any other comments that we want to get to while we got Ian on here? Okay, Tammy's just gonna flip through a bunch here for us. Yep. Anything that you want to respond to, Ian, let me know. We'll just flip through some of the comments here. Sure. Liz Impey says it was under Clinton, supported by Biden, that sentences were doubled/tripled, privatized prisons, use the inmates as cheap labor. Oh, that was another thing that you know, just one other facet that we kind of missed in this is that as a part of these wildfires, and Tammy says here, yup, Liz, they've been using inmate labor to fight the wildfires for a while now, and they get paid $1 an hour compared to the typical 8 cents an hour for most prison labor. Exactly. They've got, you know, they're using prison a whole $1 an hour, you know, and it's like, and that's up from the 8 cents an hour, which is just absurd. And they're using it's slave labor. They're using slave labor. They imprison these people, and we have a system that incentivizes people to collect slaves and to incarcerate people so that you can use them for, you know, use that 13th Amendment to use them for slave labor. And so, and you got them out here fighting, you know, putting their lives on the line on the front lines of the danger. And that's been a common practice in California. And Liz says, yes, Tammy, what is sad is these inmates can't join the fire services when they get out of jail because they have a conviction. Yeah, that's the other side of it, is that they then screw the people over, so that even after you've gone and you've spent years now fighting these fires, learning a trade, learning a craft, that you might be able to then, after having done it as a slave, maybe now you can go out into the world and actually use that experience to go and get a job. But no, they then block those you know, convicts, and they tell them, no, you've been convicted of a crime, of a felony, you're not allowed to get a job as a firefighter. And so they're not even allowed into the to break in. And in the meantime, they're also, you know, people talk about, oh, they're taking our jobs, and it's the immigrants coming and taking our jobs. But the government has set up the system where they have a whole reserve pool of slave labor that they can utilize. And so those jobs would be jobs that would be a union job. Firefighters in like California, that's a union, you know, they're protected by unions. That would be a union job with health care, benefits, pension. They're decent paying jobs. And instead of making like $20-something an hour, or over $30 an hour, even it's like the entry level is like 20 or $30-something an hour, I think. And instead, these people are getting paid $1 an hour, or even less in some cases. And so I think that's another layer of this.
Why would you stop somebody from being a fireman? Like, why would you say, no, you cannot run into that burning building and save people. I'm sorry. No. We've got plenty of other people lining up to go and run into burning buildings, you know, like, so to the point where we have no need for like extra firefighters because of, oh, you smoked weed or you sold a bag to somebody like back when you were freaking 18, you know, like.
Yeah, ridiculous. No, I think the reason that, and you're absolutely right. And I think the reason that they stop those people from doing it is because they want to keep using the slaves in prison to keep doing that work. And if they gave those jobs up, then there would be no, they wouldn't be able to save money by using all the slaves. And so they want to maintain that slave labor force and to continue to use those slaves for that work. And so they're happy to block people that once they're out, because no, now you're an actual human being. You might get treated like a citizen of this country, like a human being, and have to actually get a living wage. And so I think that's there to stop them. Tammy says, yeah. Oh, no, jump in there. What up? What did you say?
I was just going to ask you real quick. Didn't Kamala Harris have her fingers in all this stuff too?
Really? I'm
pretty sure Kamala Harris is all into this.
Yes, absolutely. In the case of maintaining the prison slave labor force in California as Attorney General, she absolutely, you're 100% correct. That's our Democratic vice presidential nominee there. Kamala Harris had a direct hand in making it so that they literally argued. She had people from her office argue that no, we need them for a labor force. We need to use that cheap labor. And so they literally argued in court that no, we want to keep these people in prison longer, and we're not gonna. The prisons were so overcrowded in California that they were going to release these nonviolent offenders, and they said, just give them an early release. And they had these like 2-for-1 days programs and stuff, and they stopped them from doing any of that, and so that they could just maintain a prison labor force longer. So yeah, they're absolutely right. Liz Impey says the same. Says, I know that Kamala made the situation worse because they need the cheap labor. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like, yep, absolutely. That was Kamala Harris, our Democratic vice presidential nominee, folks. And then Tammy says, yeah, it's horrible, Liz. And unfortunately, California, I'm not sure about the other states, is sending some inmates to ICE custody at the end of their sentence. Absolutely. This is another crazy thing that they're doing, folks. And we should certainly be aware of this, is that they got folks doing years in prison, like some people doing decades in prison. There was a case recently of a gentleman who spent 22 years, I believe, in prison out of a 25-year prison sentence, spent 22 years in prison, served their time, paid their dues. And then the day that they were supposed to be released from prison, while their sister or girlfriend, I think, or wife was waiting out, their wife, or I think was waiting, their sister was waiting outside of the prison for them and waiting to pick them up. And instead of being released into his sister's custody, they unshackled him and then released him into a private organization's custody, who was was contracted by ICE, and they just shackled him right back up and just moved him and shipped him right off without him even being able to reunite with his sister for even a minute. They just shipped him right off. So after serving their time, they have people that they use them for prison labor there, and then they send them to ICE. And once they're in ICE, if these people, if they can't there's some situation where they're not able to deport these people back, essentially. And so if ICE can't deport these people successfully, then they're allowed to just hold these people indefinitely. And so ICE has now found a loophole to then, once a prisoner is released, they can then just be passed off into ICE custody, and then ICE can then hold these people indefinitely and then extract further slave labor from them, because ICE is literally being sued in courts right now, in federal courts, for slave labor practices. And so you're just being sold from one owner to another, essentially, and they just ship them off to ICE. So it's another layer. If you're an immigrant in one of these jails, or somebody that was a refugee or undocumented, then you're further exploited here. And so that's a practice that they still have ongoing, and it's gone on under both Democrats, and mind you, in California right now, they have a Democratic governor, Gavin Newsom, who has been upholding this practice. And he says, oh no, it's the norms here, and it's just the norms, and I'm just following the norms here. So we're just upholding the laws. Oh yeah, and Tammy points out that it's not legally required for the state to hand these people over to ICE. So their hand isn't forced. They're not doing this because of some legal, their hands are tied and they're forced by the state to hand these people over. No, they don't have to do this. They don't have to hand them over to ICE. This is completely, optional, voluntary. And so, and you have a Democratic governor saying, no, we're going to keep keep going with this process. So to anyone who thinks that, oh, once we vote Joe Biden in, all of this will stop and everything is just going to be magically fixed, and the next day, there won't be, slave labor in prisons, prison slave labor will stop, will cease to exist, and mass incarceration will end all of a sudden, even though Joe Biden's the guy who literally like started it and it is part of the reason that it started. We're supposed to believe that these practices are going to stop under if we just somehow elect Trump, they tell you, oh, just go vote, and somehow that's going to fix it. Right. How do you feel comfortable? You don't have to share this, but do you feel comfortable sharing how you plan to vote this election? We're 40 days away from. Do you plan to vote? And
hey, I will say, Kamali, I disagreed. I kind of had a different opinion, and I voiced that. I've kind of disagreed in your chat and that sort of stuff a little bit. But, definitely your words have moved me a lot. And I honestly think I'm going to wait until I have my ballot in front of me to make the decision, really, because I want to see what the day is like. I'm going to participate in early voting. I think that's the best way to get your vote counted, is to do in person, if you feel safe, in person early voting, because that is the best way. Or voting by mail. I can vote by mail because in Washington, it's almost 100% by mail. Like, we've been doing by mail voting for like 15 years. And so every time that there's any kind of vote for even local elections, I just get a letter and I sign it, put it back in the mailbox, bam, done. Don't even have to, it's the easiest thing in the world. I can't believe that, everybody doesn't do it this way, or we don't have some kind of unified voting system in the States. It's ridiculous,
we should have universal mail-in ranked choice voting should be the absolute standard, in any sane democracy would have, allow people to vote by mail, universally, and ranked choice that's the two measures that I want to see happen everywhere. And if this country really believed in democracy, it's then make sure that every person can absolutely vote and give them the choice. We have the choice to go and vote in person, like you said. And I personally, in the primary, I requested a mail-in ballot, but I just got nervous about the whole postal, situation. And then I just ended up waiting till the day of and then just bringing it in and casting my vote. They had a drop box where you could just drop it off and just walk up, no contact or anything, drop the envelope off, sealed up, drop it off, and then you walk away. And so, I was, I was more comfortable with that. But so I agree, I'm probably going to try, I think, doing a mail-in vote this time, but that will be my first time doing it.
You live in Massachusetts, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Massachusetts. So are you saying they do have mail-in voting there?
Yeah, this is the first time that I've ever gotten the opportunity to do a mail-in vote. I think before they only had essentially absentee type mail-in voting. I think the mail-in was only for absentee ballots and that sort of thing. So this is the first time that I've ever seen them do essentially universal mail-in voting. Just like what you said, they sent us a little card. You fill it out, say I want to vote in the primary for this. We have open primaries in Massachusetts. Yeah. So if you're not registered to any party, which I'm not, then you get to choose which primary you want to vote in. So I voted I chose vote in the Democratic Party, and then you just sign it, you send it back, and then you get your ballots and stuff in the mail, and you can just send those back in. And so I love that system of just having the option. I think that especially in the midst of a pandemic, it's the absolute least that we can do. I'm excited to do mail-in vote. I just wish Maine got ranked choice voting. I wish we have a ballot question in Massachusetts. So we have a statewide ballot initiative. Question 2 in Massachusetts. If you're voting in Massachusetts, please vote yes on question 2 for ranked choice voting. Allow us to bring ranked choice voting to the state, and that would be amazing. I mean, Maine got ranked choice voting and then immediately got rid of their racist governor, immediately. Paul LePage, I think was his name. Yeah. So they got rid of Paul LePage the next election, and he kept winning because he wouldn't ever win with a majority. He would always just win with a plurality, but it would be because the vote was split between a bunch of other people. Ranked choice voting gets rid of that sort of, those measures, forces people to get a majority of votes in one, by whichever round they're in. And so I just think that it gives, it allows you to not be it gets rid of that spoiler effect that they like to say that third party candidates cause of I don't want people to have to make that choice of oh no, I'm going to spoil an election if I don't get to vote for my values. I would, if I had ranked choice voting, Yeah, Joe Biden would be my probably second or third choice at least. You know, like probably be my second choice. I'd probably put him as my second choice, just as like a defensive thing. I would vote my values on my first choice, which is how I'm in a safe blue state. So I'm going to be voting for the Green Party candidates, Howie Hawkins and Andrea Walker, and. But you know, and I voted last time. I voted for Hillary Clinton, and it just my vote didn't matter. My vote just absolutely in my state, safe blue state. If Joe Biden loses Massachusetts, he's already lost the country in a landslide. Like if he gets to the point that he loses like Massachusetts or California, if it hits that point, that means that there was such an overwhelming, you know, right-wing shift in this country that even places like Massachusetts and safe, solid blue California are shifting to Donald Trump, then that's over. I mean, that places like Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, those are way gone if our states end up going for Donald Trump. And so I'm you know, I just have zero concern. If that happens, I'm not going to feel bad because it's going to be like, oh, well, my vote didn't matter anyways, because he would have won the electoral votes from all the you know, swing places and things like that. And so my last time I just felt like when I voted for Hillary Clinton, I campaigned and I knocked doors for her in 2016, you know, against Trump really is what I was doing. I was campaigning against Trump, not really for Hillary, but you know, I went and did that in New Hampshire, and then I voted for Hillary, and it just, I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good about it. And it's sort of like a hold your nose kind of vote. But I didn't get to vote my values or anything like that, and my vote didn't matter ultimately. It's not like you know, my vote didn't contribute any more to her, you know, to her loss or her victory in the state or her loss in the country. And so I think for safe people in safe blue or safe red sort of areas, I think we have an easier decision that we get to make. Like it's not as like consequential for us per se, you know. But I do. That's the direction that I lean in, is just sort of like, if you're in a safe place, if you're in a swing state, it's like, I don't shame anyone. I don't think this is such a tough choice to be making, and it just sucks that they've made it such a difficult like if this was Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump, there would be no question. I wouldn't have a second thought. It's like it would be the easiest decision I ever made in my life. And I wouldn't, not just that, but I would have been out there like excitedly campaigning for Bernie, doing, you know, if we could be knocking on doors, I would be knocking on doors right now. But if not, because I did campaigning for Bernie during the primary, and like if I could, I would be doing that. But otherwise, I would definitely like you know, be making phone calls and that sort of stuff. Absolutely, if it were Bernie. But with Joe Biden, it's just like, I can't. How am I going to sit there and try to convince somebody else to vote for Joe Biden when I don't even have the?
I wanted to say that's exactly my feeling, is that you and me are the worst advocates for Joe Biden, because we hate the guy, right? We hate everything he stands for. Like, why are they coming to us and telling us to get lefties on board with somebody that we freaking hate, right? Why would you go and tell somebody who hates the pool to like go and sell pool tickets? You know, like you would never do that, right? So the onus is on the Joe Biden people. They need to be phone banking. They need to do the grassroots. Like, it's not on us. It's if they love Joe Biden's policy so much, go and call somebody. Get somebody who is already nominally a Biden person and make them go vote, right? That's called outreach.
Absolutely.
And all the outreach that comes from these people is shaming towards young people and the left. Their shame is the only thing of persuasion. They don't think about having moral authority. They don't think about having playing on somebody's heartstrings. They don't think about having intelligent reason. Like, there's all these methods of persuasion that you can use to convince somebody of something, but all they have in their pocket is shame. Oh, we're entitled to your vote, and so you better get in line and vote because you know, you know, you're pie in the sky, whatever, Bernie Sanders, you know, you hippie. You know, like that was never going to happen. So you just stand in line, and like there was somebody the other day who said, like, you might not like the bus that you're getting on, but at least it's not going off a cliff. And I'm just like, come on, man.
It's sort of extreme, you know, like, this like, you know, like alarmist sort of rhetoric is just like, you know, miss me with that. If you really cared that much, you wouldn't have nominated Joe Biden for the candidate. If you really were that concerned, they wouldn't have nominated Joe Biden. I hope you can see these comments here. What up, America? I hope you can see this one down here from Aerosol Media Group. Says what up has some fans in the comments here. Aerosol Media Group says the What Up America guy is hot as fuck. Yes, nice.
I would say
that's awesome.
Media Group
I love
Instagram is hot as fuck as well. So yeah,
Aerosol Media Group says, I love his point of view. Awesome. That's awesome. Mark McKeever says, is that a firefighter pun? Aerosol? Nice. Okay, that is awesome. That's so awesome. Really. Thank you for joining us, Aerosol. Thanks for being here with us. I agree. Your friend, What Up America, is absolutely hot as fuck. Every comrade in this community is hot as fuck. God damn it. We are all hot as fuck. Literally, unfortunately, because of these goddamn wildfires going on over there on the West Coast, in the in the case of Ian here, but yes, for sure. So thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us, Aerosol. Please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe.
Oh, I thought I was going.
No, say.
Okay.
No. What were you saying? Oh, no. You're not leaving there. I'm not letting you go yet. I'm not letting you go yet. Yeah, but Aerosol, make sure you subscribe to this channel. All right, you go like this video right now. If you haven't already, if you're still watching us, please hit the like button immediately, subscribe to the channel, and share this out on social media if you don't mind. I really appreciate that. Also, if you can afford it, support the show at patreon.com/radical democracy. Ian here, What Up America, Plasmon is one of our big Patreon supporters, so thank you so much. I'm glad I get to thank you here personally. Just thank you so much for all your support. You're
welcome. And let me tell you why I want to support this, and why I will definitely increase the amount in the future as I get a job and stuff like that. Is that dude, like, I would about a year and a half ago, I started this channel, What Up America, on YouTube, and I was like trying to do exactly what you're doing right now, like everything to a T. And like, that day that you started your show, it was, I was in a really fucked up kind of mood, obviously with what happened.
Yeah, we all were. Yeah, Michael Brooks passing. Yeah.
And then I saw you, just carrying the mantle, and just like doing like, and I was so surprised about like how many of the things that I was keyed into that you were so keyed into already, and you can just go off, man. You go off with these tangents. And there's almost no dead air on your channel. That's the thing that's really cool. It's really hard to get for a lot of people, starting out with media, is like how not to like let there be huge pauses and stuff. And you just have enough, and it's well formulated shit. And so and I love hearing it. Absolutely, man. And so it's like I almost felt like
I'm honored.
I don't even have to do the What Up America channel, because there's this guy way better at speaking than I am that can just
get out of it. That's awesome.
Everything. So why don't I just pay this person and have him go and do his thing, And then I can focus. Like, I want to do a music channel, like, where I teach
that's awesome. Yeah,
how to make music and stuff. I mean, and maybe I'll still do like
check that out and subscribe. Damn it, you make sure that you support. Let's leave no comrade under 1K, either both on Twitter and on YouTube. Let's make sure we get everyone over. We got to build our community, build solidarity that way, particularly on the left. So please support, support folks in our community. Check out What Up America's YouTube channel. Check them out at Sup America on, the Twitter. And I put the link in the description box as well. So if you're like me and you're too lazy to type this in, don't worry. Just open up the description box, click the link in the description box. Follow him on Twitter. Check out his YouTube channel for sure. And yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, and you've been like,
I deleted all the videos off of YouTube. Yeah, because I was just like, I honestly, I do not have faith in my argumentative ability to the point where like I just don't have enough reasons, and like I am so like I'll make a video and then 2 months later I'll look back and it'd be like, man, I've completely changed the way I think about that thing. So, like, I really need to like research more and like figure out how I actually feel about stuff before I go on and do these assumptive videos where I'm like, and I feel like I am in a bubble, like a left-wing bubble, and I'm not keyed into the way that other people feel around the country. Like, and just, I think that everybody's kind of in their own bubble, and I'm definitely huge into it. The Bernie Sanders bubble, like on Twitter, like all the people I follow, probably like 2,000 or 3,000 people are all pretty much Bernie Sanders people, because like during that whole time when he was running, there was a huge Twitter like maelstrom going on about Bernie Sanders. And like, I followed everybody, and we were doing all these like comrade, lists of profiles, and just follow, and so like, and you just get more bubbled and bubbled and bubbled. And so like when you go and attack somebody on the right, you're all alone. And then when somebody comes and attacks you on your profile, you get this horde of people coming in and mashing on them, right? So it's like,
yeah,
this horrible bubble. Like, we have the discourse, we need some better, like, it would be great to have some kind of publicly funded open forum. Like, maybe we could have the post office do like some sort of like internet site that where it was government regulated, and we could just have it be like this forum, like kind of like a, I don't know. It's so hard to think about what the solution is.
National bulletin board style thing, but yeah,
something to where we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, I'm in that same camp of like, I felt uncertain on, I had started this channel. Like I tried to start this channel up like at the beginning of the pandemic, and then Bernie dropped out of the race. And after Bernie dropped out of the race, it was just like, it hit me so hard. I was just like, oh man, like this was, you know, I had put a lot of my eggs in that basket and was just like, this has to work. This has to be the year. We have to do this, because what's the other option is like disaster. And so I was so in on that. And then, you know, Bernie dropped out of the race, and it was just, it was the pandemic hitting. I honestly think that if the pandemic didn't hit the way that it did, that Bernie wouldn't have dropped out when he did, and there would have been much more of a chance. But I just think it was the Bloody Monday situation. And then, you know, with the pandemic hitting, Obama sort of working behind the scenes to even like shame Bernie into and, you know, going into endorse Biden and all that. And so that just sort of really got me down and sort of hurt my hopes for a while. And I found it hard to make videos, and was just like, sort of needed time to process and recalibrate. And then when Michael Brooks passed, it was just like, holy shit, like that is like just so monumental. Somebody who Michael Brooks was somebody that I would, every time any major event happens, and it was just like, all right, let me first search, like, what would Michael do? What would Michael, like, what's his take on this? Because I need to hear his take in order to help formulate my own sort of take on the situation. And so he was just somebody who I felt like I connected with, and just like was very aligned with his sort of mindset and values. But then he had this amazing ability to historicize in a way that I do not, that I wish I had. But such a smart dude, just incredibly knows his history and can tie it all together, and has this really, you know, thoughtful, caring left-wing analysis of all these different situations. And so, but I'm still, I'm only about 5 years into my real, you know, political journey. And I still feel like my understanding of certain things is changing, but I feel like I was like, all right, you know, I feel pretty set in I feel like I have an ideology now. I at least feel like I have an ideology, and I can sense your ideology, you know, just through talking to you and in the conversations and in the comments. And so I think that we are starting here on, you know, on the left, especially because a lot of us have been through Red Scare tactics and McCarthyism, and our parents' generation sort of being subjected to those things. We didn't get exposed to a lot of left-wing ideas, you know, and haven't had enough time to sort of absorb those. But I think that now with those spaces opening up more, we're able to have more of those conversations on the left and get more of, you know, develop an actual ideology without having to sort of live in fear of being, you know, condemned as anti-American or un-American. You know, we can hold these ideologies and then espouse these ideologies publicly. It also used to be a scary thing to say you were a socialist publicly. So I think that we've, you know, at least, you know, I was able to develop, and I feel like I've developed enough of my ideology that I can go out there and at least speak on it. But I still agree with you that, like, I still feel like it's developing. Part of the show is that I want to be able to open up and develop that ability and develop those abilities and be able to open up the space to having those sorts of conversations and not being, you know, try to get outside of my bubble, move outside of my comfort zone, sort of. And so that's something that we're definitely looking to do here, and try to do it in a democratic way that incorporates the community. And that's why we're, you know, trying to do this is a new sort of, I haven't seen other shows that have done this sort of thing necessarily. And so it's just like kind of building the plane, mid-flight kind of thing where we're just learning and experimenting and seeing how it develops. Alongside the community, you can't get more democratic than that. And so I appreciate the kind words, but trust me, I think that we're all in the same boat here, just trying to like learn and grow and develop together and try to come up with, have these discussions, debates, come up with the right solutions, because I think that folks the left is getting serious about wanting to actually enact the changes, build, break the system down and build back in its place and build fundamentally different systems. And so I think that that's part of what we're all doing here. And I'm glad, I appreciate the kind words, and really that means so much. And I can't thank you enough for those kind words. I swear, everyone, I did not pay him to say that. I swear to goodness. So Aerosol Media Group says, what would you say to your 5-year-old self about the current political climate? Oof.
5 years old?
That is heavy.
I don't know if my 5-year-old self would have been able to like actually comprehend an answer to that, but like I would have just been like, go to school quickly, don't wait like 5 years after you get out of high school.
What does go to school even mean though for like a kid nowadays? It's like you can't even go to school. School's like in your bedroom. It's like there's not even like a going to school anymore. It's like attend school, but you can't even go there anymore.
What would you say?
I don't know. The 5-year-old me, I don't know. Maybe I think I'd be a little bit more militant to like maybe like 8-year-old Kamali. Then I can really start. That's when you got to start to hit the like lefty boot camp. Like for me, like it's like, oh no, stuff's about to get real. We're about to go full survivalist training mode. I have a little nephew who I swear this kid was like more radical than me when he was like 7 years old. I kid you not. He's like, I want to start a new Black Panther Party, not the new Black Panther Party, but he was just like, revive the Black Panther Party. And this kid, I'm like, yo, he's serious and he knows the shit and he gets it. He's like learning about Fred Hampton Sr. and like Huey Newton. And I'm just like, this dude, I'm just like, that's amazing. So I know that probably young me, it would just be about, I don't know, at that stage, I think political climate, I think I'd be teaching them about, other countries we might need to be visiting soon, because I don't know what's left here and about raising a child in this political climate. And for me, the question becomes, an important question is, who am I having kids with? Because if they're a Black child in America, then you have to have a whole different conversation depending on the color of their skin. No doubt. It's an entirely different world that you have to prepare them for. And so 5-year-old me, you might be having a conversation about like, really sitting them down and explaining why it's not a wise idea to you're not going to be able to fully express yourself and you just get used to those things and acknowledge that you're going to have to show some deference to authoritarian cops sometimes and just warn them about that. Because I've gotten into some touchy situation cops in my life where it's just like, I wish I was more prepared. I was raised without, unfortunately, I was raised by a single mother because my father is from Jamaica and he was denied immigration by our xenophobic, racist immigration policies in this country. So my mother's Italian. She's a white woman. She just couldn't really prepare a Black, 5 Black kids for what they were going to experience in America being a white woman. And so I think that I'd have a whole lot to tell me about race and who I really am and culture. And so, I think that's what the conversation to 5-year-old Kamali would be at this stage. So any more comments we want to get to while we got what up on? Nice. Tammy's going to just pull up a few more comments here. Thank you so much for those comments too. Good question, Aerosol. That was a cool question. I appreciate the good questions. Ask us anything. Feel free to ask us anything. We're here. We'd love to. Thank you. Aerosol Media Group says, love the channel. Thank you so much, Aerosol. Appreciate that. All subscribed up. Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aerosol. Mark McKeever says, we need more Patreons. Yes, I agree. We need more Patreons. So please, if you can afford it, folks, support us on Patreon. It's critical. It's absolutely critical. We aren't corporate media. We will never have, big fossil fuel industry will never be funding us. Pharmaceutical industry, they're not going to be funding us. We need your grassroots support. So please, even if as low as $1 a month, we appreciate it. It means the world because we're so small. Every dollar counts. But make it 5. Absolutely. But make it 5,
Come on, it's like one
coffee
burger
a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So cup of coffee a month. So all right. Well, what up? Ian, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. It was an absolute blast to have you on, and I love to hear from the community and just talk to our comrades. So
it was great.
Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I will continue watching you and keep doing your show. Fight through it. We'll get those Patreons up, and we'll do your marketing. Yeah. We'll get this song. We'll figure out a vocalist.
Oh yeah, we got Ian is working on a intro song for the show that I am so amped to finally debut. That I've heard the instrumental with some of the vocals that
it's going to be a whole different song when I'm done. But
it's awesome. It's amazing already. So it's amazing already. I'll have to talk to you because I gotta have I should just have you send me an instrumental version or something like that for now, because we just need to we need something to put on when the show starts, but we're not really ready to go start the actual show, but we want to
yes,
I can have it live.
I can hook you up with a bunch. I have a lot of stuff already, or I could make something,
that's awesome. No, if you have stuff that's I want to make you do any more labor, and we'll
they have so much, whoever's doing the music for them, they got chill beats at the start, at the end, and in the middle when they're taking a break, they have all these cuts they can just throw in there. So I want to make
I definitely want to do that.
The song, and then some little cut version of the song, and then some chill beats to kind of segue you, I think that would be so cool, and it would make your channel it would give it a little bit of extra spice,
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. I watched Tim Black's show, and he's always got some chill, jazzy kind of music. I'm just I'm vibing, even if the show hasn't started, I'm just kind of chilling. So I definitely want some of that, and look forward to working with you. And we're definitely trying to get everyone paid for their labor, and we don't want to, we support, we want to support, show solidarity in that way and build mutual aid. And so we'll definitely talk about that and work on that. Before it's Tammy's flagging me down here. Do I need to keep? Okay, Tammy says I need to keep you on for a little while longer. Hold on one second. I'm not going to let you go yet. Unless you need to jump off. You can jump off at any point. You jump off at any point that you have to go. X says so X says our economy needs to shift from an industrial economy to an ecological economy. There's plenty of jobs rehabilitating the environment. Yeah, absolutely. So ecological economy, I think that's what Ian was talking about, trying to build infrastructure, and we can actually give people jobs building the infrastructure that will, I've seen there's the Vienna, Austria, they have something called the Vienna model for building new green housing, and it's this amazing it's this sustainable housing. It's they design them, they have these civic engineers, these contests where people find ways to make the spaces more communal, and they have childcare services right there in the buildings, and there's plants growing all the way up the sides of the buildings, because they're all they use their own solar paneling to generate the energy that they have water filtration systems that uses the rainwater that catches on the roof to actually supply water to the build. It's amazing. So we can build infrastructure like that. I totally agree. X says everything helps, and we can't afford to leave any stones unturned, not if we're serious about survival as a species. Yeah, I totally agree, X. You can transform dire ecological situations to productive ecosystems in 10 years or less. How do I know? It's being done as we speak. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that, and that's what Ian was talking about it doesn't have to be it's not we're going to snap our fingers and coal production is going to end tomorrow, or we're going to stop burning gasoline tomorrow. We have to think about, transitions, ways to transition, and we have to have sensible transitions from the dirty energies, dirty fuels that we're burning right now to clean energies. And it's not just going to happen in an instant, and we have to have real strategies for getting there.
I like what he said about, or whoever said, X said about we needed to do everything, right? But I would stress that we need to, in the short term, focus on people's lives, because that's ultimately what the whole climate movement is about. It's not about the planet. It's about preserving humanity, really, because the planet's going to be fine, right? So we're trying to preserve the planet in a way that we can all survive here, right, for longer. And so But if we're going to meet that basic survival, we need to focus on people's houses first, because if we spend all of our time trying to reformat the energy sector and all that sort of stuff, and we put all our money and all our eggs in that basket, we're going to be flooded and hurricaned out of existence before we ever get a chance to reap the benefits of having of the people that I've met that are white are willingly blind to racial issues, like in a way that just sickens me, because I'm like, I'm not even all the way there. I still consider a lot of the things that I think racist, you know, like just thoughts that are left over from being grown up and raised in this society amongst mostly other white people, right? You get trained this stuff and it's horrible. And then, you know, like later when I was in college, I took a class called like multicultural studies or something like that. And it kind of like, it really hit me hard. I was like, dude, there's so many, it was all about like intersectionality, which is a word that you don't want to say to anybody on the right wing, but like, you know, it makes a huge amount of sense. And there was all these other white kids in the class who would say like, well, they just want to tell me I'm racist because I'm white. Well, yeah, like in this country, that's kind of true. In other countries, that's not true. Racism has different, like I lived in Singapore for a long time. And in that country, Chinese people are the dominant race. Right? They assert pressure on all the other races because they're in control of everything in China, in Singapore and China, and most of the entire Southeast Asia, like everything except for like north of China. I mean, to Russia, they don't really control. I mean, they're kind of, I don't know, but basically I saw so much examples of the same type of racism that white people in America, the systemic, but not just that, like actual, like personal face-to-face racism as well, exerted from Chinese people towards Filipinas. The maids there, they're treated absolutely horribly. They're beaten by their Chinese employers, right? They're made to go out on like long bamboo sticks to hang laundry off of like a skyscraper that's like 30 stories tall. And like there's all the time you hear stories of maids just falling out of windows because Chinese people, well, and I'm not like trying to, I don't want to pigeonhole Chinese people, but I'm saying that this is how it works there. And having that experience, living there for 3 years and being immersed in it, gave me such a wider perspective and ability to identify the exertion of the racism that white people here have, right? Because I saw that, and that's the opportunity that most white people in America, they don't have the opportunity to go see in another country how this same thing works. And so they're blind to it because it's invisible to them. This is the way that they live, right? That like they don't see color. I mean,
yeah.
Like, how can you not see color? People are different colors, you know, and they get treated differently accordingly. So like, if you don't recognize that, you're fucking racist. You know, and so like most white people don't do that. So what does that really mean? It means that most white people in America are fucking racists, and they need to check themselves seriously. Spend years doing it, and I mean, cut me off if I'm like being offensive.
No. And even like I, you know, because I inhabit like a lot of like left spaces, and it's something that, and I try not to shit on people too much, you know, too hard, but it's just like it's the idea of like, you know, overt racism versus covert racism, and there's plenty of covert racism that goes on in like liberal circles where it's this idea of like this paternalistic, you know, we know it's better for you, just listen to us, we'll make the decisions. You can't really, you know, you don't know what's best for your own communities kind of thing, and you get these sort of, you know, the folks that, like you said, the I don't see color, that's another form of the sort of covert racism where it's like, no, listen, we're unfortunately forced to see color, we're forced to experience color in this country. And I've experienced, you know, race in other countries as well myself, like living in Jamaica, and there you see more, it's a colorism, not really a racism. Everybody's pretty much black. I mean, you have some Chinese Jamaicans, some Indian Jamaicans, a few white Jamaicans, but you primarily everyone's black or brown, you know, some shade of black or brown. And what you really see is like a colorism where like the lighter skinned people are favored and get favored, you know, or just seen as things like just are, you know, the beauty standard is held to like, oh, you're lighter skinned, you have straighter hair, then you're considered more beautiful, more attractive. And those same stereotypes get reinforced, even in a place like where it's like all, you know, a country of all black folks. I still saw and experienced the colorism, and it benefited me there, Oh yeah, Tammy just points, it's like it's a colonized mindset really, and it's through colonization that those sort of things have, infiltrated, even especially in like the Caribbean. You have, colonization from the US and UK, and so in Jamaica it's like British colonization, and you get that colonized mindset of like, oh, this is what's beautiful, this is what's good, this is what's pure, and those things can happen. I mean, I've even as a Black person in America, as a Black American, I still have to check myself on like having my own. You internalize a lot of the prejudice that we have in the country, and so you internalize this stuff, and you end up internalizing like, listen, we want to get out of the hood, and we feel afraid. You feel afraid of like of people that look like you, and those things get internalized even within Black folks, and so I think that it can happen to even Black folks. So to think that any white person would be immune to that in this country would just be something absurd. And I think that this ties into the idea of just like the environmental justice in the way that communities of color, Black and brown communities, are typically disproportionately being impacted by climate change, even though they're not the ones that are generating the actual climate change. They're not the ones in power. They're not running the fossil fuel industries. They're not in power of these corporations. They don't run Nestle Corporation, extracting clean water from Flint, Michigan, while feeding them poisonous water. Like they're not the ones in power in these situations. And so, but they're the ones that are made to suffer all of the worst damages of climate change. And so I think that it's something important on the left that we have to, pay attention to. It's something that I like about the Green New Deal rhetoric, is that they bring in the rhetoric of environmental justice into it, and trying to understand that means that you have to have, equity in these, across, racial barriers inside of like things like the environmentalist movement, that we have to recognize that, these things do impact Black and brown communities. That's where they're, polluting the air and poisoning the water. And we have to pay attention to that and be concerned about it, even when it's happening to folks that, and we need white folks to pay attention to stuff, because in this country, unfortunately, you just don't have enough power as a minority. You're a minority, and like you need white allies and white comrades really to join, side by side in order to fight against these things.
Not in the fake way where you say, oh, we want more like Black people to be like win Oscars and this sort of thing. Like, what does that do? I want it.
Exactly. We need more Black cops. That's all we need. That'll solve all the problems of racism and policing. Just more Black cops. Even though the Attorney General that just came out and decided not to file, not to indict any of those officers that were involved in the lynching of Breonna Taylor in her home essentially while she slept. You got a Black, Attorney General. These are this idea that putting Black people in these positions of power is somehow going to change it. It's the system itself that needs to change. That's the only thing that we can change to actually change this. We got to defund police, abolish police where we can, and replace our current iteration of this idea of like policing with an entirely new institution where they really are made to, the people that are there to keep the peace. First responders don't respond with guns. I think that that's an absurd thing in this country, that like our first responders are like cops with guns to these situations of like mental health, drug addiction, homelessness. Why send in a person with a gun into that situation? It only ends up escalating and exacerbating the situation. So I definitely think that we have to have a focus on, when we talk about environmentalism and environmental justice, understanding the racial inequities that happen within that, and try to make sure that we are aware of those and acknowledge those, and we are actually doing things to combat those situations. So,
legalize marijuana to start off with, and then this is all obfuscation from like actual policies. It's all just to distract from the actual policies that would literally help people. Like, for instance, Medicare for all, right? That would have a huge immediate effect on poor people primarily, right? Just like sort of like how the environmental movement, we could say we're not going to burn recycling anymore in poor neighborhoods, right? That's what happens right now. They burn plastic because we have nowhere to put our recycling, because China stopped buying our recycling, right? And so now we just burn plastic. You put your recycling bin out, and they take that recycling bin and just throw it right in the dump, into the incinerator.
Yeah.
Like it's a complete sham. And so if we just sort of were to actually do something like progressive, like an actual progressive legislation, you'd immediately see that like they don't want that to happen, because they know that as soon as you did actually help people fundamentally, people would realize, oh, it actually does take a change in policy to actually, it doesn't just take, icons and—
You're cutting in and out on us there, Ian. Sorry about that. Okay. Yep. You're back. Okay. No. We got you. Yep. We got you.
But yeah, like Cornel West, he talks about like black faces in high places. It didn't really work out for everybody, or it didn't solve the problem, did it? Like, and I respect all of the celebrities, Colin Kaepernick. I mean, I have a huge respect for that, but that's simply not what we really need. Those aren't the people who need to be making the change. It's the people in power, right? And there's so much corruption that it's like, and it's all supported, by racism, which is the horrible thing. And the racism that people in this country won't acknowledge themselves. So it's just this vicious, tight circle that is just like, it's just this knot that we
cannot separate those two things. The racism from capitalism, they are inseparable. And if the people are serious about solving racism and ending racism in the country, it can only come when at a time when we end capitalism in the country. And for me and folks like Professor Wolf, capitalism is defined as a system defined by the employer-employee relationship. That's the fundamental change that we need to make to our society in order to regain economic power, so that we can then regain political power and actually be able to affect these things. Because that Princeton study proved that the American people just the public has no sway on public opinion, has no effect on public policy. No matter how much the people support a policy, we can't seem to get our elected politicians, our elected representatives, to enact those policies. And it's because of the ability for those people to be corrupted in the capitalist system. And it's something that we kind of talked about. You and I, we had chatted about a bit, just sort of in like just general things that we wanted to chat about today. And you brought up one of these this idea of like how is it that we're going to avoid these same mistakes of like corruption, polarization, you said, in when we're building democratic workplaces? How are we going to do this in an anti-capitalist system? How do we avoid these same issues from happening again? And I think that for me, I think that part of the system of democracy, I think that it's inherently resilient to specifically to the something like corruption. I think that right now we see how it sort of plays out in our democracy right now. It's not really feasible for them to go and for somebody to say literally buy a bunch of people's votes in a democracy. That's not how they end up. That's not where the corruption happens, right? The corruption happens when you all go, you elect some representative, and then all they have to do is corrupt this one person. And I think that this conditions are that you have those conditions are created whenever you have the situation where there's somebody with power whose interests don't align so the person with the decision-making power, their interests don't align with the masses of people that they're the majority of people that they're controlling over. And so I think that when in a democratic workplace, you sort of it will naturally eradicate a lot of those issues, because
it's true.
There is no one person in power. You have to, in order to corrupt that system, you'd have to literally go and pay off the majority of people in the thing, at which point if their interests are they'd rather have that dollar than whatever that policy is, and that's their interest, and that's what the majority of people say, then there's some argument to be made that, okay, well, that should be the way it is. Now, I don't want to necessarily allow anyone to amass enough wealth that one person could then go and sway all those people. But I do think that these things are serious questions we have to ask ourselves. I don't think that democracy in the workplace will 100% eradicate things like corruption. There will be some there will be some chance for those things to happen, even in a democratic system. I don't think that should be the reason why we don't move towards it. Of course, I think that we have to just be considerate of those things. It's sort of like the nirvana fallacy, if we're going to talk like logical fallacies of like essentially saying like, well, this is the situation we have. This is your proposed solution, but your proposed solution isn't perfect, so we shouldn't do anything, is essentially the nirvana fallacy. And it's like, essentially saying, well, we can't get to the perfect solution, so we shouldn't do any solution. And we shouldn't fall for that trap on the left, but also we shouldn't just like not be critical of these, the potential risks of our ideologies, of what we're proposing, and recognize that yes, there is a potential for this to happen, but just the idea is that hopefully in a democratic workplace, it sort of naturally eradicates the potential for corruption, because you'd have to be paying off the majority of people essentially in order to impact something. So and it's like who at that point, is that not the sort of will of the people at that stage, is sort of an argument to be made. So do you have thoughts on that, on ways to?
Well, what you're talking about is a direct democracy, which we don't have. We have this weird convoluted system with states and their electoral colleges. And I think what that's doing is it's concentrating power into a few individuals that oftentimes they don't go with the will of the people. Like we have the popular vote, like, Trump lost by 3 million votes or whatever. And it didn't make any difference, right? And so and that's our biggest problem here with the movement your show is trying to create, is that there's no tangible example that people can see here of this in action, really. I mean, there are examples of co-ops here, especially in the marijuana industry. But I mean, living in Washington is perfectly legal here, and we have a well-developed cannabis industry now, and it's huge, booming, like making our economy freaking flourish and stuff like that, providing tons of jobs, and they're almost all cooperatives. Now there's these big companies kind of getting in too, but
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know. I wasn't familiar with that they had the worker cooperative movement.
Well, it's not a worker co-op. It's not a worker co-op. It's a co-op, which we have to also be really careful about how we define the worker co-op, because co-op here in America also just means sort of like a collective. Right, a collective of companies, of private owners who have employees.
Gotcha.
Right, these aren't worker cooperatives, but it's
gotcha. They're not worker self-directed enterprises. Yeah.
Right. They don't have a board of directors in a cooperative in the marijuana. As far as I understand it, it's basically just like a glass shop and a head shop and a dispensary will all kind of like team together. And instead of having a board of directors, they'll just sort of like kind of democratically make the decision between the companies as a whole, but not with the workers, right? The workers are just, they're poor and they're like trimming bud and making glass and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't think they're making any decisions in how the company.
So it's not worker owned per se. It's not worker self-directed necessarily.
It's not really. That's the problem. The definition here and what we call cooperatives here, that's already smeared, so we need to come up with a really catchy, nice new term for that. I mean, and I have this weird opinion where I think that even though I fight for socialism, I want socialism, I live and breathe it, I really want it. I think that in America, it's just the word, we could use a different word to describe the same thing and turn off about 70% less people to what we want. What our actual policies are.
It's something that I thought Bernie could have done a little bit better on as well, of just you don't have to run away per se from the socialist label, but don't harp on that and don't make that be like the thing, that the hill you die on, and just focus on the FDR, I'm the new FDR. That's it. And just keep hammering that point home. This isn't radical. This isn't anything far left extremist. It's not radical. It's literally FDR policies. And I'm just bringing back and continuing the legacy of FDR. And I think that he would have had a lot more luck pushing that narrative instead of the, I'm a socialist narrative. I do try to, even with naming this channel, I was afraid. One of the things that I was originally going to name it was Angry Black Socialist. I didn't want to necessarily, it was sort of supposed to be a joke about playing on the fact that the typical sort of stereotype of Black people is you got to be an angry Black person. But then also trying to accept the socialist label. And I identify as a socialist, but I chose to go with the name of radical democracy because I was I don't want to just immediately scare off like half of the people before they'll even listen to me because of the scary word.
As soon as they hear the word socialism, they link that directly in their mind to authoritarianism. That's what that means to them, right? Which is really ironic considering how we have a person who's like vying to be a dictator, that they accuse the left, people who want to help people, of being authoritarians, especially when we've added the word democracy to the word. Like social democracy, democratic socialism, those two words have been together for a long time. For the last 30 years, those words have been together. Nobody's talking about socialism. Really, nobody's talking about having the government literally own the means of production. That's old socialism.
That's the, what people call sort of authoritarian socialism or big C communism, or what Richard Wolff would refer to and modern economists would refer to as state capitalism. It's still, you didn't get rid of the employer-employee relationship. You just changed who was the employer. It went from being private employers to being the state was your employer, but you still had all the same issues of employer-employee relationship, that were all those same tensions existed. And so, I think that some people, it's associated with that. I think that the younger generation is less turned off by the words, and over time we'll be able to move beyond that label being like a scary, frightening thing, I think. But right now in this moment, I don't think that it necessarily plays well. I don't think that we have to like run away from it per se. Like if somebody says, "Oh, you're so what?" Explain to them what socialism is. You can break down just like capitalism. Capitalism, what we call here in America, we call it capitalism. The system that they have in Nigeria right now, they call it capitalism. The system that they have in Saudi Arabia, they call that capitalism. Nobody would argue that those three capitalisms are the same type of capitalism, right. But for some reason, people feel that you have to have one type of socialism. And when you say anyone who says socialism is XYZ, then they're wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. There is no such thing as that. And so we can slowly have that conversation over time, but that's going to be a long conversation that needs to be had, and that has to happen over time. And in the meantime, we have to recognize that certain labels, while the younger generation, and there's certainly a generational gap here, are much more amenable. A plurality of people find socialism favorable versus capitalism. More people find socialism favorable than capitalism in the sort. I think it's like 35 and below, but that's, we have to wait that out, and that's not who's voting right here. Okay, I think we're back. So I think in those terms, it's we need to not. We shouldn't embrace those labels at the expense of actually popularizing the policies that we believe in. And that's what really matters, is like, what are the policies? Just
they agree with that. Everybody wants things to be better, but somehow like socialism has been, and who really screwed it up is all those countries who fucked up socialism, like that said that they were socialist, but really they were authoritarians, like the USSR, for instance, and my parents, I think that you're probably around the same age I am. Basically,
how old do you think I am? You can guess right here. Hold on. Wait, how old do you think I am?
I don't know. Like 25.
I wish.
I don't like that.
No. No, I'm 33. I wish I could get my 25. I wish I could be 25 again. Okay, nice. Yeah.
So and the thing that I kind of like got on a different thought now, but it was like that our generation, the one thing that I could really criticize our generation is to not know how badly we got fucked by our parents' generation, right? Like they went and made this whole lavish lifestyle. They invented the fossil fuel industry to what it is now. And they said, "Oh, this is how we're going to live. We're going to just live this way." And they gave that to us. And so we get there, and all the fruits of all of that movement have already disappeared. Now we got crumbs left. And we went through two depressions.
No, I was just going to say a lot of the gains that they got were through socialists, and communists and trade unionists fighting, to FDR, the socialist, the Socialist Party fought to bring about, proposed Social Security that FDR ultimately adopted. And we had left wing people pushing for all these gains, and our parents' generation were the ones that benefited from the Social Security, unemployment benefits, low mortgages, home mortgages, low interest in low cost homes, that people, education, they had practically free education. GI Bill was granted to white veterans, and so folks were able to not particularly not black folks and brown and a lot of non-native folks were cut out of those sorts of gains. You had them cut out certain service industries from the unemployment insurance, things that were like maid services, service work was, and farm workers were cut out from that, and those were primarily black and immigrant workers. And then you also like the GI Bill found ways to cut out black people, black veterans from that. But you had a lot of gains for white America. You got a ton of major gains. We had those high tax rates, and they benefited from all of that, and those low cost education. And then our generation just we had exactly, they had high wages. The wages kept up with productivity at that time. Up until around 1968, wages were keeping up with productivity, and then they just flatline after 1968. And we're making no more today in real wages than we're making less today in real wages. We can buy less stuff today on average than the average worker in 1973. And so we're doing worse today. The country's essentially been in decline since then, at worst stagnating. And so our parents' generation, they really benefited from all of those sort of left socially democratic policies that were implemented. They benefited from those, and then they turned around and said, oh, you millennials, you're just all selfish and self-centered, and all you want to do is eat avocado toast and buy your iPhones and play on your phones. And that was but really we sat there through the .com bubble in 2001. I was born, I'm 87 or whatever, so that's like I lived through the .com bubble, the housing crisis, and now like America's greatest depression ever. And that's been like, we've gotten like one major economic crash every decade of our lives. So the idea that like, if you're like 30 years old, you've lived through all of these economic crises, and it's been constant and consistent. And so the idea that like, oh, we're not working hard enough or something like that, the rhetoric, and I'm not going to blame all older folks. Like there are plenty of older progressives, and we got older progressives. I've met, a Vietnam vet who was a very progressive person, very anti-war, leftist. And there's Bernie bro, sort of, he was out there campaigning for Bernie and stuff with me. And so there's definitely older parts of the older generation that are with us, but by and large, the older generation has sort of looked down at us. You can see the contempt from folks like Joe Biden for the left. They say, he said he literally has no empathy for young people, he said once. And I think they just look at us with I think they look at us with a lot of contempt for millennials, but it's really that we got handed a real like shit deal, and that's all. We just got handed a really bad. We got stuck with a really bad hand, and I think that our generation is doing the absolute best with it that we can. Mark McKeever says,
Say it.
Oh, no, I was just going to read the comment. Mark McKeever just says that it's hard to pull up your bootstraps when you can't even afford the boots. Exactly. Yeah. It's just like they're telling us pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but they never gave us the boots.
Comment. Great comment.
Yeah.
We basically have been shafted every single time, every single amount. I mean, and like this is the life that the generation before us created for us, and like they had this idea then that every generation should be more well off than the generation prior, right?
Yeah.
And then refuse to admit that it has gone completely the other direction for us, right? And then come around with all this projection of blaming us for their problems and blaming us for all this stuff that they created. And it's like, we're trying to fix it. We're trying to elect someone with actual ideas, and you screwed that person, like, and I couldn't stand it how people wouldn't vote for Bernie. I'm like, dude, you have a person who has all these amazing ideas. He's the nicest freaking guy you could ever, like, would you not want to have dinner with Bernie? Like, just with his family, like, I loved it. I Uncle was Bernie so for like his wife and shit to be first lady. Like, I would have been the biggest.
Oh, man. Yeah, whisper of a dream. It was just such a oh man, I'm just thinking back to, right before he dropped out and stuff, and like just that, right before Super Tuesday, that was everything was pointing. Yeah. I mean, it was wild. I thought I thought we had it. Nobody saw that coming. They had to do everything in their power, and the Democratic establishment will always fight progressives harder than they'll fight the GOP. They'll always fight us much harder. And so they did. They were successful. Yep. Absolutely. Twice. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. They pulled it off twice. And so I don't know moving forward. I do plan to,
because Bernie, dude, we need somebody like, I love Bernie, but we need somebody with some fire, who's not going to like take any shit ever and not going to be like, oh yeah, my friend Joe Biden, all this kind of stuff. He's not your friend. He's screwing all of us. He's everything that you're talking about, he's going against that. So why are you just cuddling up to him in this way? Like, take the gloves off, Bernie, Like that's why I'm
really believe that these are existential threats, then act like these are existential threats. Yeah. You don't play games. You don't, put on the kid gloves for him. You got to get real about it. If you really do believe, like we do, that these are existential threats and that our time is so limited, we really couldn't afford a Joe Biden presidency. We couldn't afford this, and we're stuck. This is what we're stuck with, and it's going to be the reforms that we need to stave off the crises. They're going to have to come from below, and I don't know what are our chances of passing a Medicare for all under Joe Biden? What are our chances of passing a Green New Deal under Joe Biden? I mean, he's been very hostile to these things, and even in the task forces that he did with Bernie Sanders, the task forces after Bernie endorsed, they didn't use the language of Green New Deal or Medicare for all in the healthcare task force or the climate change task force that AOC was a part of. They did not say the words Green New Deal in it. And so I don't think that the Biden presidency is even going to meet the moment. I do agree that it will likely, it should be, I do expect it will be less damaging in the short term than Donald Trump presidency. Like I think that across the board, you'll kind of see, there's just like things won't be as bad, at least in the short term. I don't know long term if you get, because Trump, if Biden wins, does that empower Kamala Harris and she takes over for the next 8 years after that? And we got 12 years of neoliberalism, which would take us clean through the IPCC's, deadline. And there was another article that we didn't really get to talk about, but there was a UN report, because there was apparently like they had set some goals for 2020, and apparently, so here, I'll pull this up real quick. We can just, again, whenever you have to jump off, you literally just jump in, cut me off, and say, I gotta go. I gotta get the hell out of here. Because I've held you up way longer than I told you I would hold you up. I told you I would only steal an hour of your time.
It's all love, man. I love the show. I love being a part of it. So, and likewise, if you need me to go, then I can go too. So
love having you here to chat. So, all right, let me just show folks just this was just something that caught my attention too. As we're talking about climate change, this was a September 16th article from CNN, and it says the world set a 2020 deadline to save nature, but not a single target was met, UN report says. So, and then you can see this is an image of more of the like skies over the West Coast here, and this is just the apocalyptic look here. But it says, this is the CNN article. In 2010, leaders from 196 countries gathered in Japan and agreed on a list of goals designed to save the Earth. The Aichi biodiversity targets laid out a 10-year plan to conserve the world's biodiversity, promote sustainability, and protect ecosystems. The targets were ambitious but crucial. One, for instance, aimed to prevent the extinction of threatened species and improve their status by 2020. Well, we've reached the deadline, and the world has collectively failed to fully achieve a single goal, according to the United Nations Global Biodiversity Outlook report published on Tuesday. Humanity stands at a crossroads with regard to the legacy it leaves to future generations, the report warned. Biodiversity is declining at an unprecedented rate, and the pressures driving this decline are intensifying. If we continue our trajectory in the accelerating climate crisis, Biodiversity will continue to deteriorate, driven by currently unsustainable patterns of production and consumption, population growth, and technological developments, the report said. Of the 20 goals, only 6 have been partially achieved. On average, the participating countries reported that more than a third of national targets are on track to be met. So on average, the participating countries reported that more than a third of the national targets are on track to be met, haven't been met, but are on track to be met. Half of the national targets were seeing slower progress. 11% of targets show no significant progress, and 1% are actually moving in the wrong direction. Yeah, it just says, they said Earth's living systems as a whole are being compromised, and the more humanity exploits nature in unsustainable ways and undermines its contributions to people, the more we undermine our own well-being, security, and prosperity. So, this is what I fear, is that, like, we set these targets, and that's 10 years ago. So 10 years, I mean, that was under Obama. That was 7 years of Obama. That's the majority of Obama's presidency. He's inaugurated in 2009. They write this report, countries gather in 2010, and this is Obama. Obama's a part of this gathering. He gets together, and this is Joe Biden, the vice president, and he gets together on this issue of climate change. They set all these goals that they said, this isn't just, important. It's crucial that we meet these goals, and not a single goal in 10 years, 10 years, and we haven't met a single goal. The idea that Paris Climate Accord and these things are going to be enough and go far enough, I think that we just got to be very cautious about and recognize that, to the folks that say, oh, well, just go vote. It's like, voting will not be enough. I can tell you right now, it sucks to hear. It's not the hopeful message that folks want to hear, but no way that voting is enough in this election. We're going to have to do more.
But I will tell you one thing that I did have a critique of something you said earlier, which you were saying, if Joe Biden is elected, the people will fall asleep. And I think that you may be wrong on that one. Respectfully, of course. I mean, I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
Look at the pandemic, and if Joe Biden wins, that's going to be now on them, right? The Democrats, to do something about it. They're going to totally fuck it up. They're not going to fix anything. It's probably going to be years before we get a vaccine. The virus there's going to be 800,000 deaths, right? And so people are going to be going freaking manic, right? Figuring out some way how we can get these fuckers out of there, right? And it's going to be a really good example of how they screwed up. And I think that also, like, the Black Lives Matter movement, all these protests, this is a wave. I think that that's going to continue very strong throughout Joe Biden. I don't think the people with Trump out of there are going to be like, I guess police brutality has disappeared. There's still going to be black people dying everywhere, and everybody has camera phones now. So it's only going to get more and more videos of these kinds of things happening. And it's going to become very clear that the Democrats have no ability. They're not doing shit for anybody either, and I think that promotes a third party rise, maybe not to the level of winning in 2024, but pushing it a lot more into the thing. And I really like the people's movement part. I think that's probably my favorite. I have really, really big issues with the Green Party. I think they have horrible strategy. They're head in the clouds, like absolutely nothing being taken literally at all. Like, I want to support them. I like their platform, but if you really look into like what they've done, and there's how they don't do any like state races, or like they don't do any like local races. They don't have any
infrastructure is really
and yet they want to run for president. It's like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, come with serious.
Yeah, they kind of just come out every 4 years and kind of just do the presidential election, and that's unfortunate. And that's why I really believe the Movement for a People's Party has a much more viable chance, because of that sort of recognizing that that's the issue. Jerry. Exactly. We need. Yeah, you were talking about like a candidate that we need that, and I think Luna Turner is that candidate. And like, I would support her. I don't care if she wants to run under the People's Party or the Democratic Party. I will support her wherever she goes.
She spoke at the People's Party, and so did Cornel West. So that makes me believe that that's the direction that she's going in. And if she ran, it would be like, because the Democrats will never, ever acknowledge that some people vote or don't vote out of protest. They'll always blame that person for doing that sort of thing. But if there's a big enough wave of people that all vote for a third party, they're going to have to realize, oh shit, these people are actually checking us, or not realize, but admit to the population, right? Like, or I don't know if they'd ever even do that. I'm so, feel like
I know. It's like with the Dem party, it's like nothing will surprise me with them. Yeah, nothing will surprise me with the Dem party and what they do. And I will say, like, I think to what you said about the folks not falling asleep. I think that my rebuttal would just be that I just believe that could be a result of sort of our more of the bubble that we're in, because I agree with you that I don't think that the younger generation is going to be complacent. I think that younger people in this country, like 35 and younger, essentially, I think that they are more tuned in than ever before to exactly what's going on. They have independent media sources. They don't have to buy the mainstream media sort of line of BS, and they are absolutely tuned in and paying attention. And I think it's policy. And when they don't see those policies being enacted, I know the younger generation is going to be pissed and is going to call them to account. I think that when I talk about it, I have sort of a split. I have a bunch of older folks, old former coworkers, those sorts of folks who are much more, identify as like liberals. They're much more like sort of neoliberal sort of mindset, liberals, a liberal mindset. And I've absolutely seen from their rhetoric, I do believe from based on their rhetoric, and this is just anecdotal, really, that we're going to see folks like that who are literally just there, who they blame everything on Trump. Some of these folks, some of these liberals, it's just like everything. They have this diagnosis of like, it's all Trump's fault. And I'm talking about even black and brown older folks that I know that are like, when you question Joe Biden in any way, and I've done it, and I've had them on my Facebook calling friends of mine that I've known my whole life. I had some of my coworkers my former coworkers calling them like Russian bots, because they're just saying, listen, I'm not voting for Joe Biden. And they're like, oh, you're a Russian bot, you're a Trump supporter. And it's like, no, stop that. Don't shame these people. Don't try to attack these people. They're literally just showing their concerns and saying, this is the only way. I'm desperate. And this is the only way I know how to voice my concerns. And this sort of older generation of folks, they didn't want to hear anything in the way of like, you ask them, well, what are the policies that about Joe Biden's that you support? And they say, I don't care about the policy. I just want Donald Trump gone. Like, that's the problem, is that we need Donald Trump gone. And so it's those folks that I'm more concerned about, that they're that sort of generation and that mindset, the folks in that mindset, they're going to be the ones that kind of go back to sleep. But I absolutely agree that the younger generation, the folks that we are like folks that are of the left and more so than I've ever seen before. I mean, I was asleep 5 years ago, and I was one of those people that was complacent and elected Obama, voted for Obama, and then just turned off my brain and went to sleep for 8 years. And so I know absolutely. I know how it works. And so I know kind of where if your political ideology hasn't like been fully formed in a certain way, you're not really pushed, radicalized enough to the left, then you can fall into that trap of like thinking, okay, well, all the problems, the media tells me it's all Donald Trump's fault. If I simply vote to get Donald Trump removed, then that will fix all of these problems. And I think that there's just this set of people that we're going to lose some of those people. But yeah, I think I totally agree that I essentially with the younger generation, that they are more policy oriented and that they will not be the complacent ones. I don't think that in the circles that we roll in, I don't think that there's going to be any complacency whatsoever there. And honestly, I mean, I personally, I truly, because I don't know. If I knew that Joe Biden he was absolutely had to be Joe Biden, or it will absolutely cause, because I listen to this black activist, Roderick Douglas, and he says often, like, voting isn't just harm deferment. Voting the lesser of two evils isn't always harm deferment. Sometimes it's harm. It's not just harm reduction. Sometimes it's harm deferment with interest. It's like you put off this stuff and you cover it up, sort of like what they do with the wildfires, like where you allow the conditions to fester by not having the small control burns or whatever. You allow the conditions to fester for these massive events to take place. And I feel like it's sort of in that sort of vein where it's like, well, you ignore these sorts of things, and it allows this rage to sort of burn up within people. And so, yeah, so I it's something that I think that it's like either way that this election goes, I'm honestly, I truly don't know. I don't know long term. If I knew long term one way or the other, I would, be in that camp of like, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. And I don't shame anyone. I don't know the right way to vote in this election. Sadly, I can't tell you the absolute right way to vote. I don't think, I'm not naive enough to think that we're going to get the Green Party across the 5% threshold. I'm not naive enough to think that. I don't think that we're going to get that with our vote. Unfortunately, Jill Stein got like something like 1% or something like that. Like it's not going to do that. But it just allows me to not feel gross inside. I get to at least feel like, okay, I actually participate in democracy the way that I understand it. But I don't know which way it's going to go. But I know that whatever it is, whether it's Joe Biden in power or Donald Trump in power, we'll have our work cut out for us either way on the left. Like we're gonna have, we're gonna be the opposition, and we're gonna have to fight like hell in order to actually secure like substantive rights for the majority of people. So I'm just geared up for the fight, no matter who the hell wins.
Dude, and I got $50 on Trump, dude. I think Trump is gonna really pull it through. I really do.
Damn,
dude. People don't realize they're in their bubble when they underestimate the ground game and the grassroots movement that Trump has. They don't even want to use that word with him, but he has a huge and the only
rabid base.
The only thing that was even barely comparable to the population of just regular people that follow him is the Bernie Sanders movement, right? We sold out crowds. What is Joe Biden doing? He's selling out freaking libraries and shit. I
know. It's like he had like 8 people in a library with like empty chairs in there, John Kerry in there, like, yeah.
It's because he's not saying anything. He's not saying any single thing. He's not giving us.
They're running the like Hillary Clinton. Yeah, they're running the like Hillary Clinton strategy, the Clinton 2016 strategy. It's like keep them out of sight and just let people go vote against Trump and not give them anything to vote for. And it worries me. I mean, honestly, like, I was reading an article recently about how, and I think we're going to cover this on the show soon. It's just, there's been some recent, discussion about like what to expect from the upcoming election. And the reality is that we're in like completely uncharted territory at this point. And nobody knows, because we've not had these conditions of like, a new massive mail-in voting operation that has to be underway, mid-pandemic, a Supreme Court justice that just dies, a month essentially before the election. And like, we are in uncharted territory at this point. And so we have to like recognize that like it's going to be a tough call. I've looked at like battleground swing state polling, and I just read an article from a guy who was like a Bush. He worked for the George Bush campaign, and he was the guy in charge of like doing the map and being in charge of the map, the electoral map, and paying attention to that, studying, analyzing the electoral map based on their internal polling. And he was like saying, listen, we got it. We were so wrong. And that was a more predictable election than this one. And they were totally wrong. They thought that George Bush was going to win in essentially in a landslide, that he was going to have a comfortable win. It turned out it ended up being a close thing that he really ultimately lost. But, due to court decisions and stuff, he ended up stealing it. But like, they thought that they were going to run away with that thing. And they thought that like, Florida was a safe, safe Bush in Arizona. And so it just goes to show that like, to anyone that thinks that like Biden has this thing in the bag at this stage, it's definitely not the case. And we didn't have time to do the story tonight about, but I will get to it on the next show. I hope to do a show tomorrow, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And we'll pick up and cover the rest of the topics we didn't get to today. But one of those stories was just about, Biden once again, like, he did this like recently, was like trying to like dunk on Bernie and shit on Bernie, and was like, I beat the socialist. And, he's just like shitting on Bernie and like spitting in the face of progressives. And you have to wonder, is that really a good strategy? And is that the kind of strategy that's going to win an election? And when you just continue to like, spit in the face of the base of your party. So, all right. Well, we're rounding the corner to the 3-hour mark here. So we should start wrapping things up.
Yeah, I think
thank you. I just want to say once again, thank you so much for doing this and for joining us today. Sorry to keep you so long. I got to get better at letting people go because I drag people into it and then you're just stuck. I mean, Steve came on and he was stuck here for like hours. So I'll try to be better about it in the future, and we'll definitely.
I was having fun. Please have me back. We'll come back on again.
Absolutely. We will definitely. I'd like to do something too where we do like have some more of the community on, do a few of us in here and do sort of a bit more of like a group chat discussion kind of thing. So definitely want to coordinate that in the, we'll talk about that on the Discord, in the Discord. As I said before, thank you so much for your support, Ian. Really appreciate that. Everyone, please support, show some solidarity. Go follow Ian, at Sup America on Twitter. Check them out and support fellow leftists, and hopefully we'll be debuting that intro song soon, and we looking forward to that. And so thanks so much for all your help, all your support, and we will have you back on very soon, hopefully. Thank you so much for being with us today, Ian. Appreciate that.
Keep fighting, everybody.
All right, awesome. Take it easy.
Bye.
All right, everyone. That was Whatup America. Thank you so much to everyone that stuck with us through our 3-hour-long conversation here. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much to everyone for doing that. If you haven't done so already, please immediately hit the like button. It's like right where? Here? No, here, down here somewhere. So right there, just hit that like button. If you're watching this on YouTube, smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and share this out far and wide on whatever social media you can. Check out our clips and our other playlists. We got plenty of clips, and we will take this, we edit it down, release some smaller, shorter clips, a little bit more easily digestible for folks. So definitely check those out and support the show that way. We are like rounding the corner to being like 100 watch hours away from the point that we can do apply for monetization. So please support the show by just watching, just checking us out, watching the channel, support us that way. We have 100 hours left to go, and then we will be able to apply for monetization. Are there any other comments that we wanted to get to? Tammy, shout out to Tammy we are in this hot ass room, y'all. We are in a hot ass room right now. Tammy is sweating up a storm over there, I'm sure. I know I am. So shout out to Tammy for being the super producer that she is and holding us down this way. Thank you so much. We had propagandists coming into our chat today, y'all. I feel like we've reached a new level. We got people running propaganda in our chat, so that was exciting there. So shout out to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Tammy for doing the work that she does. Please get Tammy paid by supporting the show on Patreon, patreon.com/radical democracy. There's a link in the description box below. You need to open that description box up, click that link, head on over there, support the show. $1 a month. I guarantee you start supporting the show, you keep coming back, you will want to continue supporting the show. You will want to grow your support. So please, just $1 a month if you can, anytime you can. Please do it now if you can afford it, and only if you can afford it. I totally understand if you can't, no worries if you cannot. But if you can spare that, please spare it. We need your support. You can also drop us a one-time tip if you haven't done so already at coffee.com/radical democracy. That's ko-fi.com/radical democracy. And that replaces our super chat feature until we can get that together, until we get to the point, until we hit that monetization threshold. So in order to support us in that way, in the meantime, all you got to do is just watch the show to support. All right. Okay. It looks like we got comment. Mark McKeever says it's 2020 and we're the United States of America. Where's our fucking bullet trains? Amtrak lobbies hard to block innovation. Dude, it's so crazy, right? Like, we look at these other countries with the bullet trains and stuff. It's a safer, faster way to travel. Just cleaner technology, and it's dope. We should absolutely be doing that. Love the idea. X says bureaucracy will never produce sensible solutions in an out of control capitalist society. Totally agree. Mark McKeever says we need to deregulate the laws against rainwater collection. I hear you, X. Thanks for the heads up. Yeah, that's annoying, having those kind of, annoying ass regulations in place that end up harming people from doing sustainable practices. I get trying to protect people, but how is it any better? Look what they're doing to the people in Flint, Michigan right now. Is that a safe practice right there? I'd rather be collecting my own rainwater than depending on that poison water from the Flint River. X says we have to reject it outright on a widespread personal level with the accumulated effect of cultural transformation. Government isn't going to do this. They created these circumstances. Yeah, this is why I argue for the democracy in the workplace movement and try to say we got to build these things up locally, build local sustainability. And you do that through, building local power. X says we need to break unjust laws. Yes. Martin Luther King talked about this too. He says there's such thing as, there's just and unjust laws, and you have a duty to break unjust laws. We have to face the consequences. If we do, we have to accept that there might be consequences because of the way the fucked up system is. We might have to face the consequences of a broken bullshit system that is going to unfairly bear down on us. But if a law does not square with our moral code, we have a duty to break those unjust laws. So totally agree. X says, P.S. rainwater harvesting can be done passively through earthworks catchment. So I'll have to educate myself about that. Thank you. X says, if we move to a culture of rainwater harvesting voluntarily or through some mandate, corporations' water won't be worth shit. Exactly. Like you can't, my dad has it's a big ass drum of water that they just have like, the gutter and a little filter on top, and you just, you catch rainwater. And honestly, I'll be real, like you gotta try to treat the water and stuff, because sometimes you'll get like, you have a sitting water. Anytime in Jamaica, when you have like still water, mosquitoes breed inside of it. So you'll oftentimes get like mosquitoes breeding in your water, like your drinking water. And it's not necessarily drinking water all the time. We will sometimes cook it, we cook with it. So it's being boiled, or we use it to wash dishes. We'll try to use spring water for drinking water in particular, but you use it for drinking water in a pinch. Absolutely. So the regulations can be in place to try to help encourage people. But like, if you're talking about like preventing people from doing something sustainable like that, I'm not with it. So Mark McKeever says, damn, X, you're not supposed to be smarter than me. Didn't you read the fine print? Nice. X dropping some knowledge up in here. X says, I've been studying sustainability for a long time now. I've also operated a certified organic farm for the last 6 years. Wow, dude, that's amazing. That is awesome. That is freaking awesome. X says, this is my realm. I love it. That is your realm. That's awesome. I love that we have folks like this in our community to drop knowledge like this and share knowledge in the community like this. This is amazing. Mark says, pineapple. And yes, on pizza too. Tisk, goddamn tisk, Mark. I mean, shame, Mark, shame. All right. Pizza has no place pineapple has no place on pizza. Pineapple has no business being hot. All right. Stop with the hot fruits, y'all. All right. I don't want any hot fruit. No hot fruit. I'm starting a movement. No hot fruit. All right. I'm starting the no hot fruit movement. The no hot fruit party. No, stop. Pineapple pizza. Gross. Just don't heat pineapple. Stop it, y'all. Grilling pineapple. You savages. And Tammy says, LOL, I agree. Pineapple belongs on pizza. It's no surprise to hear pineapple propaganda from the kind of person that, eats cereal, cereal first. Who pours a bowl of cereal first? Can I get a poll, an informal poll from the community right now? Do I got any fellow milk firsters in the building with me right now? Can you please raise your hand if you are a fellow milk first human being? If you eat your cereal the sensible way, the sustainable way to eat cereal, please raise your hand. Show yourselves. Let yourself be heard. I want to give you a round of applause and a standing ovation here. So to all of my milk firsters, I got nothing but respect for you, and all of my no hot pineapplers. Tammy says, Kamali has no taste because he thinks pineapple don't belong on pizza. Shaking my head. Hot fruit. You be eating pie. That is true, right? All right, listen. I take it back. Apple pie. Apple can be hot. Apples can be hot. All right. Hot cider. All right. I take it back. You know what? There's a place in this world for hot fruit, all right? And it does not have to extend beyond apples, damn it, all right? Not pineapples either, all right? That is not an actual apple, all right? Tammy says Kamali's weird. He pours milk before cereal. Yeah, no, that is not weird. That is the way that cereal is meant to be eaten. Anything less than that is just absolute insanity, y'all. So I would love to hear from folks in the comments there. Do we got any other fellow milk firsters in the building? Please stand up. Mark McKeever says our politicians love the chaos of our voting system as they have made it harder to vote. Absolutely. And they love the convoluted nature of the electoral system, right? They want us to have to, first have some convoluted, like the ballot, you got to go in, it has to be same day, no same day registration, no automatic voter registration, no ranked choice voting. It's got to be this first past the vote, primary archaic system. And then on top of that, then it's like, oh yeah, and then you're going to go vote. We're going to do this primary system where maybe we'll do caucuses. It won't even be by, the popular vote. We'll do caucuses. And then we're going to go do, we'll have an electoral college. So after you vote, you don't actually vote. You vote not to elect the person. You don't vote for the person. You're voting for the delegates who will then go and actually be the ones to go elect. It's all this convolution that they build into the system so that we're abstracted. Democracy is totally abstracted away from us so that we're not really participating in any way. They want to put all these little, safety valves in place, quote unquote, so that they block us from actual democracy in every way they possibly can. X says they like to keep things at a stalemate where no change occurs. Absolutely. How do you do that? How do you ensure that? Just, create some bullshit system where it's some convoluted system where you never really are voting on anything directly, never any direct votes. Mark McKeever says, and will not implement term limits to retain power. Yeah, the system it serves them. They're not gonna take away power from themselves. Absolutely. The only time that they'll put in, they'll support term limits in the case of like, oh, FDR is too popular. We can't let these popular presidents come in. We got to put term limits on that for sure. X says world failed to achieve one goal. Yeah, man, they freaking the entire world too. It's not just America that sucks here. It's the whole damn world. All right, we all failed collectively to achieve a single damn goal. So the world failed to achieve one goal. Makes my case for widespread personal action and adoption of a new culture and approach to living on the planet. I wholeheartedly agree. I lived in that kind of culture. I've lived in that kind of society, and I'm telling you, it's doable, folks. It sounds archaic and arcane, but it's absolutely doable. And it's a better way to live. And I'm telling you, it doesn't just have those natural, planet health, benefits, but there's also other health benefits where if you're farming, you're naturally getting exercise every day. Like the idea of going to a gym to go work out is a totally absurd. There are no gyms in Jamaica where I'm from, or in rural Jamaica, or I don't know of any single gym in all of Jamaica, because the idea that you would go to a place and just lift a bunch of weights for no purpose is like an absurd idea. It's like, well, if you want to go lift something, go and lift, a fork, a pitchfork up and dig up some dirt and dig up some earth, plow up some earth or whatever, and plant some food. Why won't you do that? And then you're exercising and you're getting natural food from the fruits of your labor, literal fruits of your labor. And so, yeah, it has these other side impacts of you're living a healthier lifestyle. You're eating healthier foods, you're eating natural foods. And then you're also doing the physical labor to maintain good health, so that I put on a lot of weight, and it's particularly under pandemic. I have put on seriously, for me, at least 30 pounds during the pandemic. Since last year, I put on 50 pounds. I know y'all probably oh, I can't see it. Oh yeah. It's there. Trust me. It's right in this gut right here. So I put on 50 pounds, and it's through not being active enough. And it's because our lifestyles just don't allow us. The things that we need to do to survive do not allow us to like get the exercise that we need naturally. So then we got to go and pay some exorbitant fees to go lift a bunch of weights to get fit, when it's like, yo, the people that I knew in Jamaica, they just lived and existed and they were naturally fit because you walk to the river and you carry water on your head and you carry your basket of clothes up and back and forth to the river and you dig up land and you plow your own land and you chop it with a machete and you're doing all this physical labor and you're just naturally really fit as well. So you get, it's just so many benefits from living more sustainably. Aerosol Media Group, sorry about that. Aerosol Media Group says, totally agree. Having a personal garden is one of the best ways to nourish your community. Totally agree with that. I had tons of extra veggies to share with neighbors this year. Felt great. That is awesome, Aerosol. That is so freaking cool. Aerosol Media Group says, I grew zucchini, tomato, squash, cucumber, and kale. That is dope. That is so awesome. Aerosol Media Group says, going to grow winter kale. That's really cool. I didn't know you could do that. Potato and squash for the winter. That is so cool. Let us know if you don't mind, like what state you're in that you're able to do that. That would be really cool. You don't have to, if you're not comfortable sharing, don't feel compelled to share if you're not comfortable. But that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Tammy's still talking trash. I will not read that comment. I refuse to read that comment. I will not read that comment.
Kamali's weird. He pours milk before cereal.
X says, LOL, what? Yes. So that the cereal doesn't get soggy, y'all. If you pour the cereal first, and then you dump a whole bunch of milk on there, then the cereal at the bottom, by the time you get to the bottom of the bowl, especially, what if it's a flake cereal? If you're talking about flake cereal, I mean, that cereal's done. It's like soup. You're just eating like cereal soup by the bottom of it. Like that thing is like, it's mashed out. It's got no integrity anymore. There's no integrity in your cereal. I want a crunch. It's called Captain Crunch, not Captain Sog. All right, y'all. I want some crunch in my cereal. I'm gonna do some ASMR of me eating my milk first cereal, and it will be much more enjoyable ASMR because you're gonna get a nice, pleasurable crunch out of every little bite. All right, instead of like, yeah, all right. That's my soggy cereal sound effect. All right, try saying that 3 times fast. Okay. Whatup says. Oh, okay. What I said, aerosol is my home. X. All right, I will. X says cereal, spoon, milk. I am refusing to read any of these pro cereal first propagandist comments. All right. What Up America says milk last. Oh no, what up? Oh no, what are you telling me? What are you saying to me right now? Milk, y'all really, like, even for a bowl of corn frosted flakes, you're gonna eat a bowl of frosted flakes with you're gonna pour a whole ass bowl of cereal and then you're gonna put milk on that thing. Do you know how long it takes, how many minutes between that first bite and that last bite? That is 2 entirely different experiences from first bite to last bite. You were talking about that's night and day. I cannot get with that. X says, dunk that cereal and make it soft. Gross. Oh, it's just gross. It's so gross. Tammy says, Kamali is the only one out here marinating their cereal in milk. Like, how long are you letting it sit for? It's too dry still if you don't coat it in milk first. Coat it, sure, coat it. All it takes to coat is a half a second in the milk. In, out, coated. That's coating, right? Like, that's all the coating I need. In, out, boom. Whatup says you got to scoop from the bottom of the bowl. All right, see these techniques. I mean, that's a lot of work right there. I feel like there's gonna be some spillage. I feel like you're at risk of some serious spillage there. Pulling from the bottom of the bowl there. I just don't want there to be a top and a bottom. I'm trying to have cereal equality out here. I want all cereal to be on the top. All right, so I just pour. It's all on the top. It just floats to the top. All right. This is my socialist cereal. All right. I want no upper class and lower class cereal. Fuck out of here with y'all capitalist ass cereal. Miss me with y'all capitalist ass bowl of cereal out here. Hierarchical cereal bowl out here. Your upper class cereal and your lower class. Tammy says, I've seen you eat. You got spillage no matter what you do. I take it. I accept. You get out of here. No, not literally. I need you, super producer. Don't you leave. X says farming does help keep you fit. Yes, totally. And it's it's meaningful work. And you are, if you're planting trees in particular too, like fruit trees, then you're helping with the create the lungs of the planet to process, CO2 and such. And so, yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're going to wrap things up here, folks. Thank you so much to everyone for hanging with us tonight. Thank you. Shout out again to Ian Frank Olson, aka Plasmon, aka Whatup America. Thank you so much for joining us today. That was a great discussion. We will definitely, have you back on again. So we'll be talking tomorrow about we have a bunch of topics we want to get to. We weren't able to get to all of them today, so we will definitely talk about Trump securing the votes for the Supreme Court justice pick. We'll talk about that, what that means, and who that nominee might be. He says that he will be announcing his Supreme Court justice pick this Saturday. So we will hope to bring you some, maybe we can do some live coverage when he does that announcement, but we will definitely talk about that on tomorrow's show at 7 p.m. Eastern. He's planning to do his announcement on Saturday, September 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And so we will be on the lookout for that, and maybe we can bring you some live breaking news there and have some discussion around that. So I will certainly have that on my radar and keep an eye out for that. Right. And so thank you so much to everyone for being with us and for joining us today. If you're still here and you haven't done so already, I don't know what you're doing, but you better hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this out on social media. Please help the channel to grow. And I can't thank you all enough for being here with us tonight. Thank you to all of our Patreon community, as always. Thank you to everyone who was with us. Thank you to our super producer, Tammy, for all of the work that she does, even in this hot ass room here. So Whatup America says, freaking loved it. Thank you so much. Same. Thank you so much. And, really enjoyed that conversation. X says, I like this comic relief. Good shit. Yeah. No, we gotta start to have more fun on the show. We talk about too much serious stuff, too much. And I don't want to lose sight of just being able to laugh and enjoy ourselves here. So I'm going to try to start incorporating a segment into our shows that just anytime I see a weird news story, I want to call attention to it. So I had one queued up for today that we didn't get to discuss, but I won't tell you what it is. We'll talk about it on tomorrow's show and we'll get to discuss it then. So look out for that on tomorrow's show. Hopefully be incorporating some more, just fun stories that we can do where we can laugh and just, chat about the weird goings ons in this world. And so keep an eye out for that. Definitely want to incorporate more joy and laughter into the show. We definitely need more of that in our lives. And I wish I was funnier. Tammy's the comic relief in this partnership here. And so she is the funny one and I am not. I'm just not witty. I'm not witty enough and I'm not funny enough. So I wish I could be. I'll work on it, y'all. I'll work on it. I'll get better with time, right? Everything gets better with time, right? Enough practice. Practice makes perfect. All right. So thank you to all of our comrades. Shout out to all of you. Thanks for being here. I got to shut up and go. But I really appreciate everyone sticking it out this long, and to all of you that stuck it out for this whole stream. So that's it. That's that. Tammy, feel free to throw up our end screen on me. Peace out, y'all. Oh, peace. Enjoy those nails. The nails. Why is that? Yeah, there we go. Nice. Peace. What's up? Oh yeah, Tammy says keep showing the nails. Yo, I put in work. This is cut. I did that myself, y'all. So I did this myself. Y'all really got to see, because I hope y'all are seeing that. All right, I hope y'all see. Let me get that in the light there, so you can see in the light. Like boom, That's on point there, y'all. That's on point. So you got to respect the nail job. So to all the haters out there, including Civvl, I wish we had carried that on a little bit longer, because that was just wild what happened with Civvl earlier. Like, could y'all believe that shit when they had a propagandist show up in our fucking chat and like literally start running propaganda in our live chat? Yo, I cannot believe that shit. I wish we had spent more time on that. I regret having jumped off of that quickly. Yeah, check out the live chat, y'all. Check out the comments. If you're watching this after the fact, please check out the live chat replay and watch that. Watch what went down in here. Like this, that's sick. That's fucking crazy that these evil corporations are out here running propaganda on like tiny little nobody leftist YouTubers. They said they're not a company, they're just an app and the government pays them. Get the fuck out of here. You're obviously a company. Like, yeah. Tim was just saying they got a lot of like reviews, you were saying, from people who were mad, like, yeah, like 1-star reviews saying like you're out here like destroying people's lives and like. And I think they make you pay like $35 after you apply. Oh, and they make you pay like $35 after you apply, Tammy saying like this place, they are literally trying to extract from poor people as much as humanly possible. They're disgusting. They're awful. I cannot believe that they jumped in our chat and started running propaganda in our little lefty YouTube chat. Like they made me feel special for a little bit. X says, you make me laugh though. Oh, thank you, X. I appreciate that. I strive to be funnier. So yeah, I definitely, I hope so. I appreciate that. Thank you. But yeah, so that was just fun. I'll get out of here, but please check out that chat. Check out what happened with Civvl earlier. I wish I engaged with them more because it was just absurd. Sorry, I didn't have a chance to engage with them a little bit more on that and drag them for that. But all right, we're out of here. We're going. Bye, y'all. Peace out. Thanks so much for being here, y'all.